Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.
Hello, and welcome into another episode of Offensively Accurate. Hosted by yours truly, Atlas Thugged, aka White Boy D Voice, aka another racially ambiguous groiper. And it's good to see everybody in here. Tix Bomber, Splenda Steve, what a blast from the past. Long time no see. Glad to see you in here. Todd Baker, Ronnie Chapa. Tix said, I hear there's bananas and rice. And there is, in jail, actually. One story I think I had covered 2 weeks ago at this point, well, maybe a week ago or so, is a Somalian girl going on like this nonsensical rant on bananas and rice. And it turned out, I think it was like the next day or 2 days later, she ended up getting arrested for assaulting an ICE agent or Border Patrol, something to that effect. And what a funny story. But appreciate seeing everybody in here. We're going to be covering quite a lot today. And I basically spent all day yesterday and through the night as well too, absorbing as much as I could, aggregating as much as I could from the Epstein releases, listening to what some people were saying, listening to takes from Jay Dyer, listening to people like Owen Schroyer. And there's just so much. And so I tried aggregating through a few central themes. I took some time to listen to the Bannon Epstein interview, and shout out to John Ward for posting that on his channel with the timestamps. The timestamps are actually very helpful. And damn, I look very skinny today. What do I look? Do I look fat every other day? Yeah, I shaved a bit more, made the face look skinnier. I tweeted literally just before we went live. I'm like, I'm dangerously close to to just rocking the mustache, man. The razor whispers to me like the Green Goblin, and we're not going to spend time on that. But just know you may see me with the mustache here soon. I'm going to have to. I think so. But regardless, we're going to be looking at a lot of this, and so I took a huge amount of notes, aggregated a lot. And what I would say so far is this. I would say, well, exactly what Splenda just put in the chat. It is very overwhelming. And I think the best way to look at it is piece by piece. And so I think that's the way that we're going to look at it today. I did separate it by some central themes because you will find as you're looking through what's circulating and what's going viral, there are very consistent themes. And so one of those consistent themes, and I think the very central theme to this release of the Epstein files, is quite simply Goyim, or Jewish supremacy. And it's this lens and this paradigm and perspective that is very, very, very consistent across the majority of all the communications that you'll see. And this is going to rope in people like the former commissioner of the NBA, which would be David Stern. You have even a 76ers owner, I believe his name is Josh Harris. You have Peter Thiel also being involved in some of this. You have Penny Segal. You also have Steve Bannon himself. And Steve Bannon, to me, has become now a very central figure in, and truth be told, he has been for some time. But I think there's no hiding what Steve Bannon's kind of involvement with Epstein is here now at this point too. And I think when you'll read through the communications, if you have seen the communications and the text messages from Steve Bannon, it is remarkably different than how he talks about Epstein on his show. So some of the stuff we're going to explore. So I think what I would like to do is actually we're going to start with the interview. It's the thing that I think a lot of people kind of have only seen in clips. I want to cover that first because there was a good bit there. And we're going to start slow and kind of ramp up with some of the more kind of insane stuff that we've seen. And so for the, let me get this document here pulled up. It was a 2-hour interview. It was like an hour and like 57 minutes or so. There was some oddities inside this interview that were just odd. I guess that's probably the best way to say it. Like, there's weird moments where I'm assuming what they intentionally had done in this interview was it seems that they had been recording for an extended period of time. I think you can find documents that say that. So like upwards of 12 hours or so. I don't know how long they had planned to interview or film. Because at one point in the 2 hours that we do have, there's a wardrobe change. And one of these individuals ends up, well, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate that, brother. That he has a wardrobe change. And it's not like I think he changes his glasses and his shirt. I'm assuming to make it seem like it's over a course of a few days. And it just happened to be over that 12 hours or so. And the first thing is there's this kind of weird energy, like even right in the beginning. The way the interview is done is that Steve Bannon's not on camera. So the whole interview is done and it's right out of the rip. The producer, you can hear him chiming in too. Bannon will be kept off camera. And so they keep reminding Jeffrey Epstein that when he is to respond to these questions, he needs to be restating the question and his answer. Kind of like how you were taught like in 5th grade, like when you answer a question, restate the question in your answer. That's how they were doing it because the idea was supposedly that Bannon wasn't going to be in the interview or his side of the recording shouldn't have been involved or shouldn't have been in the final release. But given the fact it never made it to actual release, we're getting like the kind of raw footage. Steve Bannon is still present inside of it. So it's just kind of like just a weird setup because it's not that common that you get these kind of one-sided interviews. When you get these one-sided interviews, you'll get them from 60 Minutes sometimes, but even inside of that though, they will occasionally pan to the 60 Minutes host. Now, generally it's typically very one-sided, but I thought that was kind of odd and it seemed very intentional to keep Steve Bannon out of it. And when you look at it from the whole, on the large perspective, it appears, and it does seem to be, that this was a rehabilitative interview. Kind of an interview meant to not polish Epstein's, reputation, but it almost came off in a way that it was meant to just be rehabilitative in the slightest bit of sense, almost in a way to kind of bridge the gap and be like, okay, I did those crimes and I did my time, but here's who I am and like what I do now. That seemed to be kind of like the gist of where the interview was going. Now, ultimately, it never aired because I don't think there was ever enough. Epstein's reputation never even made it to a point where releasing an interview like that would have been feasible. Let me put this on screen here. I want to go to the actual where John Warren had it so we can look at some of these timestamps that have them. So again, this is where we got it from. John Ward posted this, and thank you very much for doing so. Give him a thumbs up for it. The timestamps are insane because there's like a bajillion in here. And it did help quite a bit actually going through this. Now to the interview itself, let's get some of this going. I do have to put my glasses on, so if it sucks for the reflection, I'm sorry. But I just have to. And also make sure you smash the like button unless you're in the Epstein list. And one other thing too that was kind of weird, it's just kind of a general notes, is there is an odd dead space around like the 14-minute mark. And it's literally right as when they start talking about, during this financial discussion, and then it picks back up with the Trilateral Commission. So getting that out of the way, those are just kind of the only general oddities. I will say there's no kind of sense where I watched it where it felt like it was overly edited or anything was being cut out. But again, if they were recording for a long period of time and then they got 2 hours, it's hard to know what we don't have. But with that, there's about 21 different points I put in here, 22 actually different points I put in here on the list here, all pertaining to this interview here. Now, the first one is it does start right out of the gate with Bannon questioning how Epstein got on the board of Rockefeller. And it's kind of giving a platform of like, where did you come from, right? Who is Jeffrey Epstein? And so and Jeffrey Epstein essentially says that he was brought onto the board of the Rockefellers to be kind of the change of face of the era. And so Epstein kind of words this and he talks about this in the sense that he is not a typical kind of numbers guy, but he's being brought in to the board as kind of a bridge to be like, now we are moving into the new era. We're going to modernize ourselves. And so that's how Epstein kind of explains it. He does explain that his relationship with David Rockefeller got along very well, in his words, and that they went back and forth on a lot of different things. He says even to the extent that David Rockefeller explained world politics to him. And one of these times he recounts David telling him in his early childhood that one of the worst parts was being seen as a Rockefeller, but nobody knew that his dad told him, like, you're not getting any money. So Rockefeller kind of talks as like, this is like a very life-altering, moment in his childhood, which is like, he just, that made him make money, I guess. They do get into the Trilateral Commission. And after he kind of gives this recount of the Rockefellers, it's kind of moving into Bannon pushing to understand a bit more. Like, what is, so explain this to me, because it's what you'll find through the entire thing is there is this tension between Bannon and Epstein. And it's on a couple of different things. On the first thing, there's this tension, this natural tension that you can just feel that Bannon is not buying literally anything that Epstein is saying. And not even just like some of the smaller stuff, but on the bigger things as well. And so one of the main points of discussion here is that Jeffrey Epstein was seen, or used to be seen, I guess by some he might still be, was seen as this kind of extreme, like this very prominent financial kind of mogul, this guy who was involved, very, very networked. And one of the big arguments that they have is Bannon refuses to buy the argument that Epstein didn't see the 2008 like financial crisis coming, or that he didn't see, or that there's no kind of like prediction model for these kind of financial crises. And it's funny because Bannon kind of gives it away where there is a bit of camaraderie. And so it's odd because it goes from Bannon going, I'm not buying your bullshit, to then there's these other moments where Bannon's kind of being like, they're kind of chuckling it up a little bit like bros, although you can still tell they disagree. So it's kind of, you can kind of tell there is some level of relationship here between Bannon and Epstein that goes beyond just interviewer and interviewee. But they do talk about the Trilateral Commission. He explains it being comprised of like, businessmen from North America, Europe, and Asia. Spooky stuff, in the words of Epstein. He literally says that. He talks about how the first meeting of the Trilateral Commission took place in Tokyo, but couldn't recall where the hotel was at. This is one of the other elements that Bannon also calls bullshit. He says there's no way. He's like, you would have known. You would remember the exact, like, where you were at. You would have been starstruck. And Epstein's like, nope, I'm not like that. And that's kind of where Epstein continually makes this point, which is he's not like everybody else. He didn't get depressed in jail. Like, it's all incredible. He's just along for the ride. And he does kind of give off this extreme left-wing, secular, just Jew vibe. And it's right out of the gate too. When you hear him talk, the moment he starts speaking, because it's in a kind of fractious, like stuttering kind of way, very beta male, if you will, it immediately almost like a knife cuts away a bit of that kind of fear factor when you're seeing all the Epstein photos you've seen like day in and day out, being posted for the last like 10, 15, 20 years. He starts talking and you're immediately like, oh, this guy, like, he just loses aura. Like, immediately, it's like aura just gone. And you get these vibes that he is kind of maybe a Kabbalah practicing, witch loving kind of guy. And you do get these vibes. And it's similar from like, if you've ever watched these interviews from people like, I'm forgetting the pastor's name, but have you ever seen some of these interviews where they actually go in deep to talk to like some of these like left-wing Jews and their takes on Judaism, like in some of these older kind of historical documentaries between Christianity and Judaism, you'll know what I'm talking about, kind of getting this kind of like, we believe in a lot of things, but we also believe in nothing kind of vibe, very spiritual, odd type stuff like that, Kabbalah-like, if you will. Then a huge portion, like Astrobot's talking about here, when he goes on about subprime lending, is pissed off, Clinton slop for votes, giving out home loans to deadbeats. And this is kind of where the other element is, which is where it comes to who needs to be assigned the most blame for what occurred in the financial crisis. And Epstein defends the financial markets and the financial institutions and says actually it was Bill Clinton. And you'll find that there is this viral clip that was circulating, which was specifically talking about how Epstein does not believe that every person deserves to own a home. And so Bannon's kind of articulating this by saying like, so you're saying the problem is that hardworking people wanted to own a home, and that's what caused the financial crisis? And he's like, no. He's like, what caused the financial crisis was Bill Clinton essentially threatening people, suing them for discriminatory lending. And so the financial institutions were like, they just basically went in on it. And what was paired with that was Bill Clinton guaranteed the loans. And so once the guarantees of these subprime mortgages came in, the banks were like, oh, it's guaranteed. That doesn't get much better than this. And so they foretell, they explain the subprime mortgage and how that led to the crisis. But the main point there, Epstein's saying two things. One, that Bill Clinton is the reason for it. And two, that he doesn't believe every person should own a home. So you can kind of get where some of his political positioning is coming from. And of this, though, begins this kind of more broad element, which is nobody understands fractionalized banking. And so he even explains that financial people understand, but they only understand so far as a doctor understands their specialty. So that's kind of the way he describes it, which is, and I think this is probably the best quote from it. He was like, nobody understands the financial system better than me, but nobody understands the financial system. Making the point that even of the people who spend their entire lives in it, working it, selling stocks, etc., they only ever have a portion or a percentage of an understanding. And he was basically admitting to Boenin there in his answer on why they do not and could not predict the financial crisis, and rather why they weren't in control of it, is because it's, for one, a very complex thing, but also that these systems aren't understood by the people who exist in them primarily. And so he likens it to a few different things. And I think the best comparison that Epstein gave that made the most sense, I guess, in my opinion, was he was explaining it how doctors operate in their field. He was like, so when you go to a doctor, he's like, yeah, you expect a doctor, when you go to a doctor, you would ask the doctor, hey, you know what's good for me and like how my body's supposed to function. The doctor goes, yes. But when you need a kidney operation, you go to the kidney specialist, or, throw ENT, right? And so that you will understand their specializations inside the fields. So not every doctor can be a hand surgeon. Not every doctor will be a throat surgeon, yada, yada. So he's likened it to the fact that the most that even the elites in the financial institutions will only ever understand is like their local recal, like their local like region. Essentially, like if you are if you're an investment banker, you understand your side of like venture capital. You don't understand like other elements of the monetary system. While you might grasp them, because you're not in them, you don't have the full understanding. And so it's in this kind of explanation from Epstein that he's trying to tell Boenin, this is why it's nobody, like nothing, everything feels chaotic. It's because even the people who tell you they know what's going on actually don't know what's going on. Now, Boenin still, even at this point, refuses to buy it. And I think the reason why Boenin refuses to buy it is not because he thinks that just Epstein's just lying to lie to him, but Boenin has the belief, and many others hold the belief too, that these people are fully and well aware of what they are doing in terms of market manipulation, and that this is kind of his BS defense of it, which is, no, nobody really knows what's going on. Like, we're all just kind of like there pushing buttons. But Boenin and like many others hold this belief that there's this exorbitant amount of control over the system, that there's no way that it's just magically happening and it's all chaotic. And I think Boenin at one point brings up that how these recessions have happened in like a 10-year kind of cycle. And Epstein's like, I think you sound like an astrologist. That makes no sense. And it's kind of this quick smackdown, which you'll notice occurs 2 or 3 times, where Epstein doesn't really get mad or frustrated, even despite everything that's being talked about. But there are a couple moments where you can kind of hear a couple snaps from Epstein where he's immediately shutting down Boenin on what he's pushing. Now, they do move into the fact of inflation being this ever kind of moving beast, inflation seemingly being the biggest dragon that these financial people can't chase. And he likens it to how every other system's basically fallen victim to it, and that it's more so a testament to the American system that we've not had worse inflation. Then they go on a bit of a tirade about how Epstein was in jail during the financial crisis, and he was like on the phone between like Bear Stearns, president, I think Jimmy Kane at the time, and he was also on the phone with the president of JP Morgan, going back and forth trying to understand how he didn't even know that there was a financial crisis until a guard brought him food and was like asking him for like what to do with his pension fund. The interview kind of like takes a bit of these weird turns, but the large first hour of it does specifically kind of aim at the financial crisis, the financial institutions, and Epstein's involvement with it. Almost has nothing to do with any of his like what you would expect to hear and see from the Epstein files in terms of like these sexual crimes. It was largely more so just about specifically like the financial involvement, where he came from, and like that first kind of era of Epstein, what that was like. And they do spend a little bit of time on it just in the first hour. They're talking about being afraid of prison food, which in Epstein's words, he's talking about how he ate Almond Joys like the majority of the time from like the vending machine, which I remember hearing those stories like way back, where he was afraid. And it was funny because in this interview, I believe it's taking place in 2019. I believe, let me verify this real quick. I'm positive it's 2019 and not 2018. It's like early 2019, likely March, anywhere from March to June at Epstein's Manhattan townhouse. But I don't think that's true It did not seem to appear that it was at Manhattan Townhouse. It appeared to me that it was happening at Bannon's house, and I believe Epstein says that verbatim towards the end of the interview right before he leaves. Positive. But that would need to be checked. There's a claim from the video we pulled that says otherwise, but I'm very positive that happened at Epstein's home. But they're talking about how he's eating almond joys out of the vending machine because he was terrified, based on the nature of his crime, that they were going to do something to his food, which Epstein denies. Epstein says, no, I don't think they were put that in my food because of the nature of my crime. He's like, I think they were going to try to do that and put that in my food because I have money. And so it was kind of once again like an avoidance to go deep on the sexual nature of the crimes. But then they spend kind of the end of that first hour talking about Bill Clinton being the enemy and revisiting the financial crisis and many things I would imagine you guys probably really don't care about. Then there's the weird wardrobe change. The wardrobe change occurs right around like this halfway mark, and then a lot more of the Kabbalah starts coming out directly afterwards. And so point number 9, right out of the gate, there's this feeling, and I think I can go to it here actually. Let me find it specifically, because to me it comes across as if like he's on drugs. Let me find this moment here.
When did you first start
53:14. So this is like the beginning. So I'll cut it open here. We'll start here.
to get nervous, understanding Bill Clinton in all this? Did you change glasses?
Yes.
Okay.
I changed shirt.
I saw the black.
Are you okay with the?
Yeah, great. I think we're gonna have all kinds of changes.
I'm experimenting.
Yeah.
Okay.
When did you get a feeling? Did you ever anticipate before it happened something like 2008 could happen?
No.
How could that be?
Because it's the word I can beat it to death is that it's very.
So it was like that stutter when I was listening. I probably pulled it back like multiple times. And I just, like, to me, it's like this comes off like he's on drugs. You know, the wardrobe change, it's like this weird black screen moment in the middle of it, but I'll play it for you again.
No.
How could that be?
Because it's the word I can beat it to death is that it's very much like a.
And the only reason I bring that up is because it does feel like there's a little bit of tone difference in like the first half of the interview versus this half. Not like I'm going to sit here and be like, he's on drugs, like it mattered. Like, who cares? He's doing much worse than that. But just to bring it to your attention, it's one of the things I noticed in here. And this is when they get to the point of, does anyone understand the money system as well as you? In which they start arguing a bit more. And this blows up a bit more into, eventually, there's a moment where Bannon verbatim says, there's something deeply fucked up with you. And it was like, you know, and the way that the interaction occurs is just not normal. There's like the only other way I can describe it. So I'll go to the timestamp here again. Something deeply effed up with you. It's like down here, 104:13.
There's something deeply fucked up with you.
At least something.
Well, we know there are things deeply fucked up with this. You will get through in this film,
Right.
but you cannot possibly have sit there, knowing that you came from nowhere, knowing that you went to the very top of what is considered outside of science and maybe physics, the thing people most admire because it's like alchemy, understanding high finance.
So the people here are like, you think I'm like pro-Trump or something? Are we getting the retarded leftist coming into the stream now? Come on, man. It's too early for this right now. You could click on literally, I don't know, anything else in mine and be like, yeah. We talk more about Trump? We talk more about Trump? Anyways. There's this moment, at least something, Epstein replies. And so it's just kind of odd. And it's this one thing that you can just pick up on between Bannon and Epstein through the entire interview. This weird back and forth between camaraderie and then being mad at each other. Right? You see this. This is funny. I'm going to have to stop doing the, what's the thing called? The vertical streams. So as soon as I started doing the vertical streams, I get all of these absolutely retarded people flowing in, bunch of names like And it's wild to see how people kind of talk too, right? It's just like, yeah, we think it's around 2019. And you just see that, like, the final form of online discourse is exactly where we are. Just chaos, anger, and full-blown just retard maxing. Like, screaming at the top of the lungs. And now here we are. And it's funny because it's that meme, right, of Alex Jones, Jew, 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 Jew. And then Jew Boy made the one of goy, 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 goy. So I took that one. I took that one to make the thumbnail because I was like, this is exactly where we are. But there's only a few more points in this interview anyways worth even mentioning here, but I wanted to cover it first because I wanted to start slow. And they have this kind of lengthy aside talking about how miracles, and you end up getting a good bit more from Bannon, where he just essentially just like gives up on trying to get certain answers out of Epstein. And then it moves into a weird discussion about like Newtonian, moving away from the old, what Epstein considers to be old fashioned, which is the measuring of math and science being old fashioned. And this is where it gets very, very, what's the word? Kabbalah-like, because Epstein then begins inciting that the old ways of measuring everything in the old sense of like observing, measuring is archaic in the sense that it has essentially kind of reached its limit. Like we've reached the furthest point to where our current understandings of like science and math and trigonometry and such will take us. And so what he does is he says, we need a bit more, something different than that. So Bannon, I think, I directly asked him, so is there a new field coming about? Do you expect we'll have a new field to explore these kind of sciences and physics? So they bring up quantum physics, but it's in that Epstein references the female intuition. And he's comparing and contrasting the way that the male perception is very pragmatic and hands-on, where the female perception is a lot more intuitive. And he's playing it up as if there needs to be a change in mindset and framing of how we view and measure and observe the world around us in terms of math and sciences, not from the male old-fashioned measuring perspective, but from a more of a female intuitive perspective. And if you're familiar with like the Kabbalah, this kind of sounds like right on track with where he would be at and what his actual kind of beliefs would be. And it's funny because once Jeffrey makes this argument, Bannon kind of comes back and he was like, so if I can't measure, he's like, but this BS. He's like, because all you do in finances is you measure this system, you're measuring that system, you're measuring this, you're measuring that. And it's hilarious because as soon as he does that, Jeffrey Epstein, forgive me, he's like, whoa, don't abuse the word measuring. He was like, it's not, I feel like you took the definition of measuring and made it all this. Bannon's like, so what is measuring then? Can you give me a definition of measuring? And he's like, well, it means like a lot of different things. And so essentially it's like, it's everything that Epstein wants it to mean, but not what Bannon wants it to mean. And it's kind of one of those weird, like, leftist kind of moments where you can just like, it's very illogical and incoherent. And a couple other things. The one is that he does deny that black people have lower IQs. And this might be the funniest part in the entire thing. And he's like, there's this argument, verbatim quoting him. He says, there's this argument that I reject that black people are less intelligent. But then he literally compares, if he were to be outraced in a foot race by an African tribe from a lion somewhere, well, that's a sign that blacks are more intelligent in their field. Like, dude, it was like, I mean, you can't believe this. I have to go play this for you. Let me find this here for you. I don't know how, I think it's the lion example. How did he put this? Yeah, the black people lion
intelligent
analogy.
Than white people. It's not true. We know, for example, that if I was in the forest and I had to run from the lion or figure out a way not to be eaten, and my competition is a local African, I'm the one who's getting eaten because they have the intelligence to deal with their local environment. So it's just different. It's not better, it's not worse, but there's many differences amongst different types of people. And so people have different intelligences and they excel in some intelligences, usually and less so in others.
When did it come to, because the world of high finance.
It's funny because like I don't even think Bannon has a response to that. He's like, hold on, I'm just gonna let that one slide. But it's like, dude, you're talking about intelligence, and he's like, well, if he beats me in a physical foot race, then he's smarter than me. It's like that is the most retarded thing I've ever heard. Also, what is Real APAC going about? I'm on the latest Minecraft DLC. It's okay. This Minecraft DLC is what Epstein would want. I don't know. I'm just like, I feel like I'm getting old. I'm aging every year, every couple of weeks. I turned 30 and all of a sudden, like, I can't even understand half of what the slang is anymore. What did you say? What's that? And beyond that, they talk about blacks having low IQs. It's a weird argument. They go into quantum physics. And I do think actually Jeffrey Epstein gave a decent kind of explanation of quantum physics for people who aren't familiar with it. Although they didn't dive too deep into it beyond there. And then there's a part where Steve Bannon says verbatim to Jeffrey Epstein, he goes, "You're being rabbinical." And he says that because Epstein keeps going on these tangents, and anytime Bannon basically says something or occurs with, or like tries to make a point or explain a little bit, and he's like, you're being essentially, that is like a kosher way to say you're being Jewish. And I think Epstein kind of laughs at it. And being rabbinical. Then eventually Bannon does ask him straight up, is your money dirty? You know, is your money dirty? So Epstein's like, no, my money's not dirty. I earned it. But Bannon keeps pressing. And he was like, but do people know like what you've done to get your money? If people knew what you did for your money, despite who you donated it to, would they still want that money? Epstein essentially says, well, these people, you know, these Pakistanis and Indians that he donated to that had cancer or something, like they would have taken money from the devil, is his argument. He actually says to Bannon, he says, no, he says, the question that you should be asking is, should I take the money? Bannon goes, is that a legitimate question? Epstein says, of course it is. And then the next thing that comes out of his mouth is, well, ethics are complicated. You know, then we have these ethical dilemmas, and he's like, oh, I'm sure it's a very complicated ethical dilemma. And then it ends with something that we've already seen from Peter Thiel from Palantir, which is kind of the end bit that I think probably is the most viral element of it that's been circulating, which is Bannon asked him, do you think you're the devil? And then Epstein says, he kind of has like this weird interaction where he kind of thinks about it for a second, you know, maybe I am. Then he goes, no, the devil scares me. And it's kind of odd because you kind of have these weird, the body language in both Peter Thiel when asked and also when Jeffrey Epstein was asked was not the most enlightening or positive. But that's kind of the interview in a nutshell. I could go into detail, an exceptional detail, but it's a lot more boring than what you would be expecting it to be. Real FX says, share with the chat. A little levity for the show. What is, am I missing something? APAC? APAC's in my chat in there. Are you trying to give me $7,000? I could take $7,000, dude. I don't know. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I am myself retarded. Maybe I am retardado. But that is the interview. And that's kind of the slow portion. Now, on to the, put it on screen, please. Put what on screen, please? You saying Minecraft DLC? Is that like a real thing? Oh, my Twitter. Will I be able to use this on them with friends? What is this? Oh, you tagged me. My bad, dude. Oh, Lord have mercy, dude. What is this, bro? Hey, thank you for the call out. Sorry I'm retarded and didn't understand what you were saying. What is this? What does it say? Want to change the world IRL? Start in Minecraft. In the free Good Trouble DLC, explore global civil rights movements, meet change makers, and learn how to stand up, speak out, and build a better world. Wow. Get this from the beginning, man. Who was it? Is it MLK? Bro, who is this? Who is Malala Yousafzai? Pose on them. I see what you're saying. That's crazy. It's just what we needed, actually. Do I get my own? Can I craft my own picket sign in Minecraft? That's crazy. MLK's entire career was basically crafted, written for, and promoted by a bunch of rabbis. So that's insane. And the real Apex says, will I be able to use this on them with friends? I'll repost that just so people can see it. Yeah, give me a second, dude. I woke up like 5 minutes ago. No, just kidding. My daughter would never allow me to sleep in that late. But okay, let's get into it, man. Let's go right at the Epstein files. And so we're going to aggregate from where we have been the last couple of days, and then afterwards we're going to go to the actual. We're going to go to everything that we've been coming out today. We're going to get more casual because I'm feeling like a streamer today, and I shaved, and we're feeling good. What is up, Marcus? What is up, Marcus? Just missed me covering the interview, but if you missed that, I think Zeb's going to cover it later on tonight too, probably in a bit more detail. I just want to give you a broad overview. I don't really think it's anything worth spending 2 hours to go and listen to be quite honest with you. But here's what we have in the aggregate for the Epstein files. And we kind of have a few kind of broad themes. We have Goyim and Jewish supremacy. That's like the main thing. We have kind of like 13 large circulating elements coming out of things that are just relevant to Goyim. Then we have the next section, which is about human trafficking. This is some tips here, some pieces as well. Anonymous tip. We also have, what seems to be a back and forth between some, our guys actually fighting each other, unfortunately. We have a weird thing that supposedly is about Susan Hamlin. But then we have Netanyahu, Mossad, and Israel. That's the third section here. Then we have the fortune element, which is, I would like to explore the fortune element a lot more than what I have so far, but we'll touch on it today. Then we have Palantir being mentioned. Then we have Pizzagate, some elements that are relevant now from Pizzagate. You also have Steve Bannon, Epstein, and Trump, which again is maybe another large portion of this, if Steve Bannon. Then you have Hitler being mentioned in the Epstein files, which is a crazy thing. You have pandemic simulations mentioned in them. You have transgenderism being pushed, active conversations happening with Robert Trivers, or Trivers, however you say that. And then other miscellaneous things, such as Epstein talking about black people much differently than how you saw in that interview. And Ryan Dawson also appeared in the Epstein files, not like he's on the list, but like he's was raging at people, I think, after Virginia Giuffre had passed. I think that's what the document was about, or some other victim, but he was going crazy, ballistic, if you will. And then Chuck Schumer was also mentioned in the Epstein files as well. And that's kind of the broad portions here, but the Goyim is where we're going to start at. And the Goyim is, unfortunately, and luckily, the Goyim know. We have finally arrived to the point where the Goyim know. And that's kind of what the point of the thumbnail was and the definitionally of the title, Find the Form of Online Discourse. And what I will say, even before we get into a lot of this stuff, is the fact that Libs of TikTok, Rogan O'Handley, DC Drano, Jack Posobiec, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, basically the Daily Wire crew, the Israeli Wire, a lot of the people who were on the first round of binders who were doing the dances, right? They're like, they got the face on. Most transparent administration ever, golden age. Yeah, they were radio silent for extended periods of time. And we did actually get a couple posts from Matt Walsh finally coming into the fray, which shout out to Marcus pointing that out too. And then Michael Knowles as well. And it couldn't be much worse than just its slop. It's utter goy slop. Michael Knowles kind of went on this angle that, ultimately, like, we're never really going to get anything consequential from this. And then Matt Walsh put it in a very hardcore kind of like left versus right perspective, which is, I'm not seeing what Matt Walsh is seeing. He must have a different set of Epstein files than me. And it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad, but I think if you don't know how I feel about Matt Walsh, I'll say it for the people who might be new. if Matt Walsh was one of our guys or was actually like under some conviction of like, you know, we need to get Matt Walsh out of the Daily Wire, he would have left a long time ago. Matt Walsh is never leaving the Daily Wire. He is party to the system. Like, I do not have any faith in Matt Walsh. I do not appreciate Matt Walsh. I think he's historically done some good for the conservative movement, particularly in the What is a Woman documentary. That was a huge blow to transgenderism. He has had some actual headway, but in terms of the future vision, what we want for America first, I don't think he's an ally to that, quite literally. I actually might go a bit harder on Matt Walsh than I think others do. But I'm just tired of it. So let's go to the first one here. This first one is, let the Goyim deal in the real world. The first one we're going to be looking at is Epstein casually explaining that the Jews create vast fortunes through financial speculation. This is kind of one of the first ones here. This is from Sovereign Bra. Epstein casually explaining that Jews create vast fortunes through financial speculation, market crashes, and exploiting the labor of unsophisticated Goyim. Quote, let the Goyim deal in the real world. Quote, this is the way the Jew makes money. And then Sovereign Bra comments that so many stereotypes contained in one email. And so what you have here in this email is from Jeffrey Epstein to Roger Schenck, and it's specifically talking about, again, from the perspective and paradigm of a Jew. And this is very common. This is a common theme, and this is the first theme we're going to be exploring here. The second one here is, you quote, you behave just like the Goyim you do not respect. And this is Epstein and Joshua Finks, who is the BlackRock CEO, Jew, and Larry Fink's son, emails. Quote, you asked me to violate a basic conviction of mine and have an abortion. Quote, you behaved just like the Goyim you do not respect. So in this communication, you'll see here, very, very specific. And it's very odd too. Like if you read through this whole thing, it's about this kind of back and forth over an ex like being irritated. But if you just read down here with Joshua Fink, you seem very, very angry at me, almost bitter, and you were altering facts and circumstances in a large way. I don't understand what my mother has to do with it either. We're not having a rational discussion now. But if you just read it up here, we'll start here. Please no more silly questions that you already know the answer. It is a waste of both our time. I love you and you love me. What would you like to do? Joshua Fink, why is it silly to understand the past? Then the response, Josh, you asked me to share your life with you. I excitedly accepted. I shared my etc. You came home, da 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 da. You asked me to violate a basic conviction of mine and have an abortion. Your mother said it would be your best interest or in your best interest if I did. And now ask why you should be ashamed? Now that it is the high holy days, it's simple. You behaved just like the Goyim you do not respect. After the holiday, I'll be willing to share a meal. No sex. None. Just crazy. But again, care less so about the specific details of, the Fink, and although those do matter to a certain degree, the point here that should be seen very specifically is the way they view non-Jews, Gentiles, Goyim. And it's very consistent, and it's not just Epstein, right? It is very consistent in the communications, no matter really who he is talking to, especially if they themselves are Jewish. And Elberg, Virginia guy, says the files of the blueprint. This is an ARG. That's for the Goyim. Number 3. Number 3 is David Stern in the Epstein files begging Jeffrey Epstein to get him into a conference. And this one's this is crazy. That's wild. This wasn't there last night. So X has now suppressed this post. Visibility limited. This post may violate X's rules against hateful conduct. And it's literally explaining verbatim what is on the file. What a world we live in, man. This is some of the stuff that has to change. And people aren't going to tolerate it anymore. Visibility limited because we verbatim said what a Jew said about white people, about Gentiles, about the Goyim. Insane. Tell you what, dude, if peaceful revolution is not on the table, there's only one thing left. You got to let people talk to each other. Please stop. Get the Indians off the case. Ring, ring, ring. Calling in. Balagov Gatavi? Yeah, I need you to stop defending the Jews. This stuff is ridiculous. But this is David Stern, and so he's like the previous. I think who is the commissioner now? It's like Adam Silver. I think is like the commissioner now, and but this is David Stern, the previous commissioner. And what you'll see here is David Stern's writing to Epstein. When can I call you? Epstein responds later today. David Stern's asking, how can I go to the Milken conference without paying the entrance fee? Plus, it's sold out. Last time, Merkin took me. To which Epstein responds, just go and hang out in the lobby. David Stern responds, that's for the Goyim. So it's not the only NBA individual. Now, there's more from David Stern. Now, I will say, too, take everything so far as allegedly, right? We're just exploring and discussing what has been dumped out. So for the most part, there does need to be more time spent and sifted through these things. We do need to actually get investigations, but at the same time, it's hard to expect that when Kash Patel literally perjured himself and before Congress. So it's a bit of both worlds here. So this is actually a bit of a joke between David Stern as well and Epstein again. And I'll explain the joke here for you. It says two hookers are talking about sex. So this is from Stern to Epstein. So this is Stern saying this, not Epstein. It says two hookers are talking about sex. Tell me, what is sex? Sex is when you dress up, go to a bar, flirt with a guy, he buys you drinks. You go to bed and he leaves you some money on your table. So what is good sex? Well, good sex is when you do all the same things, but he leaves lots of money on your table. And what is love? Love, that's a Jewish invention to avoid leaving money on the table. And so, but if I were to pose this statement, I would be on Palantir's kill list, which I probably already am. But that, again, you can see the paradigm here, right? And the thing is think about all of the effort that they have put in specifically, like in the mainstream conservative circle, to deny all of this, to deny that there's some level, that there's this Jewish supremacist element, to deny that there is a lens in which a lot of these elites look through, which is very anti-Christian, anti-white, through the lens that is pro-Kabbalah, pro-Judaism. And they have fought tooth and nail, and with, in a matter of 48 hours, it's gone. I mean, it's very, very clear that you can see these things. Cernovich, I'm glad that you brought that up. Cernovich I actually saw yesterday with a very, very weak post, but at least he did acknowledge it. And he did say verbatim, he was like, regardless, and I don't agree with this, but he was like, regardless of how you feel, he was like, racial, supremacy and yada, yada, it needs to be called out either way. And he's making the point there that it's very clear and obvious the majority of what's coming out of the files, what people are paying attention to, is specifically that. Yeah, we don't talk about Jack Posobiec here. Then there's this, I think one thing I'll highlight, and actually I think one thing I'll bring up, I should bring up first. I think this might be a good thing to bring up now before we get too deep into it. I'm going to bring up Nick's, Nick Fuentes' long Telegram message before we get deep on this, because I do think there is some truth to what he's saying here, if not wholly. And so Lucas Gage is, let me zoom it in a little bit more for you guys. Lucas Gage says, all the old heads agree while the newcomers are falling for and pushing the goy slob. So Grimaldis took a screen grab of Nick's Telegram message. This is from yesterday in the middle of the day. So Nick says, the only sensible thing to say about those Epstein files is that the FBI should reopen the investigation, and perhaps there should be a congressional subcommittee because the files do not contain anything resembling a smoking gun. The popular Epstein narrative is that the world's elites are occult, satanic pedophiles using blackmail to control all world affairs. There is really no overwhelming evidence of this in the files that have been revealed. Rather, the most you could say is that there are some extremely vague and suggestive but eyebrow-raising emails and uncorroborated allegations. These warrant additional investigation but are not in themselves conclusive. What is disturbing is how this incredibly vocal, low-IQ conspiracy movement is declaring victory after hastily scouring these 3 million documents for anything questionable, embellishing and extrapolating as much as possible, and then passing this off as established fact. For example, these people discovered a document from a bank transfer that read ball.name. Immediately, the conspiracy crowd inferred that Epstein named a commercial entity after the biblical demon Baal, which proves that he was a religious Satanist and that all of his transgressive activities are a form of ritualistic offering to Satan. It turns out that the original document read bank name, and Baal appeared due to an error when the document was scanned and uploaded. Classic pattern of looking for data to fit a predetermined theory. No due diligence, jumping to conclusions, and then extrapolating. He continues, the most blackpilling trend over the past 6 months is how the counter-Jewish movement has been totally captured by the dumbest people in the room. Somewhere along the way, it stopped mattering whether you were willing to openly acknowledge and critique Jewish power, which is sort of the entire point of all of this. It used to be the case that you were on the team for being willing to criticize Jews in Israel. Now you have to have the same answer for every question. You can't say anything about Venezuela, Greenland, ICE, Charlie Kirk, the weather, or Ukraine outside of whatever tangential connection there might be to Israel. Otherwise, you are involved in a conspiracy. And he finishes by saying it used to be enough to say that organized Jewry is a fifth column that promotes Zionism and open borders. Now you have to believe that Jews control the weather and are using chemtrails to make plastic snow and fake ice. I want nothing to do with these people. They are going to taint every legitimate critique of Jewish power and drive away intelligent human capital that can actually change the world. And so I think for a lot of people, they're going to get tripped up on the fact that he's saying there's not anything resembling a smoking gun. And I think a lot of people are taking this as a not to do nothing, right? Which is, again, I think quite literally in the first paragraph when he says they need to investigate it twice, I think it's kind of a tell away from that. But I would say there is an element to this which we know is real, right? Which is, I bring it up with Project Esther all the time. There is a very strong and clearly element between people like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Ian Carroll. I'd throw him in there at this point, although he has been rather silent. I would imagine that's because he might also be trying to figure things out too. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for now. But there's clearly already occurring strong measures of division. Now, this was already boiling up from the Charlie Kirk incident immediately after the fact between Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens. The crowds were broken between the groups. People were infighting back and forth with each other. This is one of the desired effects of Project Esther, from the Heritage Foundation, essentially a Jewish program to fight back against anti-Semitism, but in a sense that is comprehensive and robust, that is only in the American realm, which is attacking things like the Hamas Support Network and HSOs. And there does seem to be a growing faction of people who are unwilling to entertain anything beyond Israel. And I think that does put you in the position where they want you to, which is they can easily point to you and understand that if the average person is retarded and cannot grasp certain elements of these things, and you already see how the left operates. I mean, the left has a son talking about illegal orders and ISIS. So knowing that, you have to operate and know your audience. In knowing your audience, you have to be able to articulate things that doesn't make you come across like you are batshit insane. And one of the easiest ways they have always been able to do this, and this is the way that part of the reason why Pat Buchanan was not elected president. And this is part of the things that House brings up all the time, and I agree. I want to not make the same mistakes every single time, right? Let's not make the same mistakes that every previous generation of anti-Semites made before us, which was playing into their hands, which was going a little bit too hard or too far too early, letting things kind of fall out of control, because the way that they basically and essentially packed Pat Buchanan up was calling him an anti-Semite. And it was effective. It didn't matter how right Pat Buchanan was. The average person just thinks the worst thing in the world is you being a racist or an anti-Semite. So if they just say it enough times, it won't matter how right you are. You will be packed away and ushered off stage as a degenerate or some kind of scumbag Nazi loser. Pat Buchanan didn't become president. And so it's in these same elements that I do think that people do need to be like hold the line and be articulate. Don't come across as like a schizo, right? Don't be enraged and foaming at the mouth. Although I agree and I get the sentiment, right? I don't think anyone's sitting here looking at the malevolent evil of what is in these files and what they are pointing to and are like, and don't immediately want to jump out of your chair and be like, what the F is going on? But understanding we need to be able to tackle this in a way that will be effective and long-standing. Not doing something similar to Pat Buchanan, that ushers in another 20 years of mass censorship, and we have to restart this all over again. And it largely is, and people have to admit to this. I think it's kind of wild to me to deny it, but a huge, I would say almost 90% of the reason that we are right now allowed to talk about what we're allowed to talk about is because Nick Fuentes did break through containment, and he did appear on the mainstream. He did end up on IG Reels and started red pilling people. I think that's undeniable. And so it's wild to me that the same person who red pilled the majority of all of these people are now turning their back on him because they disagree with something now. And again, that's just where I'm kind of viewing it in the same sense of two, strategically and tactically. And at the same time as well, I do view these things, which is, if you put yourself in a position where Timcast IRL or whatever can sit there and go, yeah, many people came before Nick, that totally did, but they were also ineffective in their own unique ways, right? They were effective and also ineffective. GLR, assassinated, right? Pat Buchanan, basically ushered into obscurity. A lot of people didn't even know he ran for president until these recent events, and they're like, wait a minute, who's Pat Buchanan? That is what they will do. They will bury you in history if you are unsuccessful, and then make it so that somebody has to go out of the way to come across some random stream and see some random guy who's talking about something that they're like, wait a minute, what? And it's just to say, I think there is an element here where we need to be very careful about not allowing ourselves to be ushered off in the same way. And part of the reason I say that too is you got to think about it from the sense of, does anyone seriously expect Donald Trump to like win the midterms? Are the Republicans in a good position to win the midterms come in 2026? Does everyone feel good about our chances as like the Republicans to win the presidency in 2028? No, I don't. And I don't think you guys do either. So knowing that, what is going to happen? Well, the left is going to come back into power. Well, if the left is in power and they don't have to appease any donors who are in Trump's camp or in the center right or right wing camp, they're not going to have anybody. There's not going to be any mouth to feed. They're going to have to appease on the anti-Semite side of the aisle, and it will be very easy for them to go, oh, we're going to go back to 2016 standards, and we're banning all anti-Semites. Anything even close to that, misinformation laws are coming back in. I mean, it is on the horizon, and so it's to say all of this to not. No matter how right you may be, there's still a form of delivery of information that is required for it to be effective. And everybody knows it. You know, the smartest person in the world, right? Stephen Hawking. What does it matter? I don't want to listen to that guy speak through an electronic harmonica, but he's one of the smartest people in the world. Who wouldn't want to listen from him? But it's because he cannot deliver information in a way that is charismatic and people want to hear. It doesn't matter how smart he was or how right he may be. It sounds like I'm listening to a robot. Turn that off. And I mean, I'm just like this. I'm just trying to make the point here and like stretch these concepts so like they make sense. You know, I'm not even trying to be, I'm not trying to make fun of Stephen Hawking, but it's to make the point. There is strategy here, and I think it's important. But to go back to the files, I wanted to make sure I covered that and give kind of a broad like, let's not jump on everything as if it's pure unadulterated fact 100%. Let's sit on these things and wait. Because at the same time, there also maybe Hawking did go to Epstein's Island today. That's funny. Because there may be elements too of like, are there things being intentionally put out there to make people look in wrong directions? That too as well. And again, it sucks because it's like psyop on psyop on psyop on psyop, and I hate even having to engage and interact with this, but it's real. And so I think you can't go too far without having to recenter things and go, okay, let's work with what we know, with what's tangible we can sink our teeth into, and let's treat things that are less substantive as exactly that. And no, I completely agree. I'm not saying to throw out the files at all. I'm not. And what's what we're going to be doing today? We're going to be going through all of the things that I've aggregated so far, and then some once we go back to the timeline. So it's not to say to throw it out either. It's to say let's be reasonable about the way that we dissect the files. And let's remember everything. Let's keep it stored in the memory banks, but then let's engage with it as we would like in a court case, right? Treating it in the sense of like how confident are we that we can corroborate this information? We covered Stern, and the reason why I said all of that was because the video I'm about to play does reference the Ball bank account, but I have since seen the other document that shows it literally says bank name. Because the other one that says ball.name or whatever does look like the scanner had an issue, but it is kind of weird that it would make that. that kind of an issue. Regardless, here's a short style video. It's about a minute long.
It's called Baal.
And I do agree. I agree and disagree with this. I agree specifically on the element that people need to be behind ideas. And I think people specifically need to do a bit better, like, and myself included, but introspection on like, what do I actually believe? When push comes to shove, would I rather have a white nation or a Christian nation? What would I take? What would I push for? If push came to shove, would I want fully interracial marriage legalized, or should it be outlawed? Like those kinds of things, right? Think deeper about like where your positions are. And when you come into a pot where you can't really like figure out what you should think, then trace it back to your source material. For me, it's the Bible, it's God, it's Christianity. And I go, correct me, Lord. Like, and sometimes I pray even like Jesus, like I need help thinking about this because I see both sides and I feel like I can go either way, but please reach out to me and help me figure out how I'm supposed to honestly think about these things. Just some advice from what I do here. But then you have this video here, and this is kind of a short flip through of some of the goyim here that's in the Epstein files.
Jeffrey Epstein's bank account was called Baal, the ancient Canaanite deity which people had sacrificed their children to. A victim's diary shows that she was impregnated multiple times and forced to give birth for Ghislaine and Epstein. Israel is mentioned twice as much as Donald Trump in the new documents. Here he is discussing with Roger Schank, a Jewish American academic and hedge fund worker, saying Jews create vast fortunes by manipulating markets and creating financial speculation and exploiting labor. He says, let the Goyim deal in the real world. In a discussion with the Rothschild family, Epstein says if they overthrew the Ukrainian government, there would be great opportunities. The Rothschild family paid Epstein $25 million for certain algorithms. While talking to Peggy Seigel, August 7th of 2010, she asks if an event is going to be 100% Jewish. He says no, they'll have Goyim in abundance. But don't worry, they're just brilliant wasps from JP Morgan. Joshua Finkelstein, BlackRock's Larry Finkelstein's son, is accused of not having any respect for non-Jews, seeing them as not human. This is from his ex-girlfriend, Svetlana. He pressures her to have an abortion. In 2017, Epstein has a conversation talking about if you want to hire the best people, you have to hire only Jews. Only hire those who can prove they are genetically Jewish. Maria Farmer, one of the first victims to come out and name Epstein.
I wasn't allowed to go get food. And when I called Ghislaine and asked why I couldn't eat there, she said, it's a Jewish country club. You're not Jewish. They're not going to serve you. They, honest to God, think their DNA is better than everybody else's.
Said that their operation was motivated by Jewish supremacy.
Thus, therein is the primary theme of the majority of what's been coming out. And the Mamdani thing is kind of wild, too. That is absolutely a very wild revelation. I think his mom is pictured not once, but twice in the Epstein file release that came out. And I think there's contention of whether the child she's holding is in fact Zohran Mamdani or not. Now people are like doing the face physiognomy, going back and forth over like, is he, is he? I just realized my light turned off some time ago. I apologize. Hard to see me, huh? And one thing I was thinking of too, like, it's probably because I cover Jewish supremacy and have been for a hot minute since I've been red pilled. I was red pilled yesterday, whatever. I'm probably come off like much less shocked and like appalled at what's in these files than like your average person probably would be. Could you see the one that came from Asmongold where he's reading verbatim, is Goyim's only Goyim's only responsibility and role is to serve the state of Israel. And Asmongold's like, this is insane. And for me, I'm like, no, yeah, definitely. Yep, I expected that. I'm like, oh, wait, I was supposed to be shocked here, actually. No, I'm sorry. It's been literally nonstop over here. I'm very used to seeing it. Jonathan Greenblatt, I think I could him alone, I would know that majority of them think and feel this way, right? Just read through the ADL. You just read through some of their works previously, and this is the trend. And I think this is what people need to know. People need to know this. And So if you're here for the first time, you're new to this kind of idea of Jewish supremacy. This is nothing new by any means. And quite literally, if you trace back through their entire history, quite honestly with you, you will find that these themes have remained from the Pharisaical Judaism fork that it essentially became after the covenant was fulfilled. These things show themselves constantly. You can go back and you look at like the feminist movement. You just look at the way that they behave, like with the recent MLK Day, right? I think it was Xavier Rousseau, right? He's this guy who's like this black dude with blonde hair, this raging homosexual, and he's like one of their top boys. And so he does this thing for MLK Day, but it's not about black people and MLK. He was like, and let's not forget, it's only a 50-second video, and he's like, and let's not forget who helped MLK with his speeches. Who was there? Who were the first people behind, MLK during his speeches? Who was there for MLK when he was doing this? And it's like, Jewish rabbi. And it was like, so on MLK Day, they're like, and don't forget to thank a Jew for MLK. It's like, all right. And that's just a drop in the bucket. I mean, like, this is status quo. So we have a theme here. We have a common theme here on this show. It's called More of the Same. And it quite literally is called that because every single day, if you just simply scroll X for long enough, for me, it probably takes 10 minutes just because it knows I'm, what's the word? I'm not going to say it, dude. I'm not going to, because I'm Christian, I probably come across these things a lot more common than the average person does. But if you just scroll long enough in the political aisle, next thing you know, oh, World Zionist Congress said what today? Oh, the organized Jewish voices for who? Oh, what's that over there? The World Jewish Congress did what? And I keep saying, it sounds like I'm saying the same thing, but there's like 90 plus like world organizations for this. And we call it More of the Same because it is every single day. It's either they're pushing something anti-white and praising it. It's the end of Europe as we know it. Thank God white Europeans' age is over. Or the rise of anti-Semitism. Or, and here's why the Holocaust matters today. Or, I mean, it's just like, it's very similar. It's very common. It's every single day. It's pointing something out. It's whinging. It's moaning. And the way they would tell it to you is like they're perpetual victims. Everyone's out to get them, no matter how good they are. The world's out to get them. And then what we see on the Epstein files is look at these stupid goyim. Look at these stupid goyim. Are we gonna have 100% Jew night? Nope, goyim in abundance. But these JP Morgan wasps were pretty good. Like, oh, like whoa. And I thought the funniest thing I think I'd seen so far of it was from Sneeko, and he quoted one of these goyim ones, and he was like, now I don't feel too bad for playing that song in the club the other day. Actually, now that I'm reading this, now that I see what Epstein and David Stern said about me, hey DJ, play that song again. We're going back to Miami, and it's hilarious. And so I bring that up to say this is one of the ones that went the most viral. And I had sent this clip. I'll put it on screen here in a second. Let me get rid of some of these tabs. I had sent this one specifically. Oh, you did? You got the hat? The black one? I still want to get one of the, what's the word? The blue ones. I want to get one of the blue ones still. Automod actually filters Robert Bowers. That's crazy. I'm sure there's a few names that are like that here. But this clip here is Epstein or Asmongold reacting to what quite literally might be the most kind of just insane thing to come out of the whole entire Epstein list. But here it is. It's phenomenal.
Here we go. Goyim were born to only serve us, he said in a 2010 sermon. Without that, they have no place in the world, only to serve the people of Israel. Guys, this is insane. Here we go.
Bro, like I debated on turning on a 24-hour stream and just uploading this 19-second clip and letting it play all day until YouTube took it down. But we have to, dude. One more time, man. One more time.
Goyim were born to only serve us, he said in a 2010 sermon. Without that, they have no place in the world, only to serve the people of Israel. Guys, this is insane.
You know, so he's got a bit more of a reaction to it. And he's even at this point probably getting used to it or being warmed up to the idea of like what else could be coming from the Epstein files in this direction. And it was funny because there were people who were just basically, you know, going into the files and doing like Control F pizza or Control F Goyim or Goy. And you're getting like all these insane results. And it's just absolutely insane. And there's no denying it now. There's no, how do you put this back in the bottle? Right? How do you, and here's the thing too, like this is partly what I'm ready for and willing for, or rooting for, I should say. It's like, what happens to the audiences of people like Matt Walsh and Crowder and the Daily Wire when they just don't mention these things? To me, it's like more so that there are going to be more of these individuals who are going to be having audience bleed. And they're probably going to be going to people like Tucker Carlson or Nick and Candace Owens. You have to. Especially when you see like Matt Walsh's take. Like, I have to go to this. I don't have the direct link that Marcus put in there. But this, I will go to the one that Marcus shared in chat. Or in the Discord, I should say. Of Matt Walsh here. Shapiro already didn't mention it today. Yeah, of course he didn't. But Shapiro literally said the files didn't exist. So let's go here. And this is the best part. This is like one of the best things of everything occurring. You know what finally came out from John Doyle today? John Goyle. He posts like a series about how Rosa Parks like really wasn't even. It was all fake. It's like, wow, that's lovely, dude. That's lovely. I'm glad that's where we're spending our energy. Fair. Granted, that does need to be explored. But a lot of people don't know how fake that story is. But it's like, of all times now, like this is what you're covering, John. Hey, Donnie's in here. Let's go. Let's go, Donnie. So let me find it. It's a bit longer. To this one? I don't think so. It's this one. This is the one that Marcus had sent in. So this is about from a day ago, February 1st, about 12:30. So this is probably early on when a lot of stuff is coming out. But Matt Walsh says, I'm still going to the Epstein files to discuss on the show tomorrow. Some people are arguing that the nonsense in the files, unsubstantiated tips called in from anonymous schizos, means that the documents never should have been released at all. He says, I understand the argument, but I totally disagree with it, which is why I've called for the release for years. He goes in saying the conspiracy theorists were right. There is a powerful network of evil, degenerate, incestuous elites whose behavior, even when it is not criminal, though it is often criminal, is nevertheless disgusting and depraved. For years, they have enjoyed far more privacy than they have ever granted us. They deserve to be exposed, even with whatever unintended consequences may accompany it. So we're waiting for someone to be named, right? So we do have elites, right? At least we have a tag here. Okay, elites, that's something. He's naming somebody. He goes on, I don't see any other option. In a post-COVID world, a trust in our institutions and the elites who run them is non-existent. These are the people who locked us in our homes and lied to us about the reason. They lied about George Floyd. They spent years claiming that the best way to treat a gender-confused adolescent girl is to chop her breasts off. They have lied so brazenly and so frequently at the highest levels of society that now we cannot be satisfied with anything less than complete radical transparency. Goes on, yes, liars and charlatans will take whatever they want from the files out of context to support their preferred narrative. This is not ideal, but the path we've taken for the past several years, allowing the very people implicated in the files to decide which parts of it we can see, is far less ideal. In fact, it is totally untenable. This is where we are now. Put it all on the table and then the chips fall where they may. So be it. Like, it's just like nothing. There's they. Where was it at? These are the people. These people, they. Just elites. Just rich people. It's just those dumb rich people who are doing it, dude. It's always them rich. Now he sounds like a leftist. Yeah, they. Matt, who? Matt, could you be a little bit more specific? And it's so dumb, too. It's so dumb. And the reason why it's dumb, and I'll explain it to you like, Jew boy debate, that's funny. I would debate Jew boy. But it's very funny. Because the argument you get from like a lot of these like left-wingers, for example, and like Hassan Piker, or you even get it from people who are like in the right wing who are like just smoking too much pot, which is like this idea, for one, that we can all get along, we need to pursue unity. No, you're pursuing complete and utter victory. We're pursuing the destruction of the left. We are pursuing the extinction of Marxism and many other things that will come with that. I always get called literally in the middle stream. It's wild. But this idea that everything's here to divide, the rich want to divide, it's a class issue. But that's not true at all. Quite literally isn't. Because when you look at the left elite, the left-wing elite is actually very outspoken on wanting being pro-immigration, being pro-mass immigration. And largely a lot of them are because they are immigrants themselves. And this is kind of similar to the story we explored from Paul Wellstone in Minnesota, setting up the extremely wealthy, thank you for subscribing, setting up the extremely wealthy welfare system to be taken advantage of by immigrants, like I think it was like in the early 80s. Of course, he's a Ukrainian Jew. Left-wingers are outspokenly wanting as many people here as possible. They are very outspokenly wanting to bring a multicultural society. They want a lot of immigrants here, right? But like they are very outspokenly in wanting there to be a multicultural society. They want a lot of people here. Like they want people, equal opportunity, right? The right, the elite and the right, although aren't outspoken towards that, they don't want this kind of, what would you say, this class battle. Because what are they doing? Well, thank you for the super chat, brother. I appreciate it. Glad you enjoy the streams, man. I will. But the right, what's the right doing? Well, as showcased and exhibited by Elon Musk and many others from the H-1B visa discussion, they wanted the cheapest labor they can possibly get. They're also pro-immigration. They're also pro-removing the native population. So it's not the nexus is not class and poor people versus middle class. The nexus is native population versus non-native population. The nexus class is people who have heritage, belongings, and ownership stake versus a group of people who don't. So it's not this whole, like, the left wants to divide people. It's not race. It quite literally is. And it's more specifically, it's ethnos. It's a nation. It is the nation of America is being invaded by every other nation, quite literally, in the world. Unfortunately, and largely too much from India. So when you hear these arguments and it's like they want you to, the real division's on class, it's like, no, it's not. There is general division just in general, but just like naturally that occurs like tension wise between like just envy and jealousy and stuff like that too. But that's not where the nexus of the political system is. The political system, the nexus of where the majority of the issues go. The first thing you'll be called out about when you're making your argument is, oh, you're just a racist. It very clearly is the number one operant element in what is occurring. It is trying to replace the native population. And when you listen to these people talk about it too, whether it's from the WEF, or whether it's just from, it's from UN officials having some sit down where they're slapping each other on their fat guts because they're just a bunch of Irish Jews. What you'll get and what you'll hear more often is they are happily ushering along this replacement. They are happily seeing the white numbers drop down. They are happily seeing the minority numbers of the Muslim communities, the Islamic communities at large, the Black communities, Somalian communities, Indian communities rising, growing, becoming better. They cheer it on. So no, there's not an element here of class warfare. The element here is of native population. The warfare is trying to remove a peoples from a society because in the paradigm of what will benefit both the left-wing and the right-wing Jew at large is a multicultural society where they can take full-blown advantage of the identity politics elements that will be therein afterwards, or will continually escalate in scale the more multicultural the society becomes. And this is kind of being a bit more like on some of the 101 elements, but just to kind of like give you a base here of why these files are relevant. is because now they are shining this light on that supremacist element, on the Jewish nature of it, because it takes away, and now it becomes a lot harder to make the argument for. Now you still can, but it helps with the evidence and the circumstantial evidence. It helps make the case more so of, no, this isn't class. Look how they speak about us. Look and match their tendencies with the policies of what they say in public. Now look at what they say in private. How are you going to deny me that this is anything but Jewish supremacists wanting to run full roughshod over a country? And the Israel elements also matter too. You know, Netanyahu also matters, but the very specific element means, like, it wouldn't matter. You could get rid of Netanyahu. Like, I think Dave Smith and some people would have you believe that if like Netanyahu and like the corrupt government of Israel was like done away with, or like they got arrested or something, that like the problems would go away. And I'm here to tell you right now, like, that's not the case. Benjamin Netanyahu could get arrested and like his next 10 guys, and the person who will take over for Netanyahu will continue what they were doing then. Because that is the goal and objective of the nation state of Israel. That is simply just the way that they operate. Granted, it is not all of them, but it is their natural inclination to be pro their own people, pro their own state. And as the nomadic peoples they have been with the diaspora, it presents this very unique kind of personality trait among them, this unique kind of in-group preference. Which was why it matters so much that you make the point that it doesn't matter if they're left wing or right wing. Their primary operatives are Israel and securing the existence of their people, because they live and have a generational, from multiple elements. Obviously, from the way they were cast out from Rome, the way they were cast out of Germany, and many other places. They are and have essentially, what's the word? Kind of like internalized. Maybe I think it's like a left wing way to say it. But it's part of who they are as a people, right? It is kind of like in their ethnos, in their identity, is this nomadic tribe who has been expelled from many different places. And this is kind of like why they have such an attachment to the victim narrative, right? I might have went too hard there on YouTube. Hopefully not, though. I don't know, though. We'll see. Protocol of the Learned Elders of Zion. You can go to the 2008 playbook. You could go down the line. There's so many elements of so many different ways you could look at it and see how it was in its idea, and then see how it was in practice. See how they applied it to. Look how they applied that idea and process to this function here. Look how they applied that process to this over here. It is like, it's aggressive. It is aggressive. And this is why the element of race realism does matter too. Because once we can move past, if we can break the taboo that is, well, I guess socially as a society, our society at large has accepted that there's no differences between the races besides the color of our skin. There's no difference. Like, the only thing that separates me from a black man is that his skin was coded to be darker than me, and the sun hits us different. But that's not true, and everybody knows that's not true. There is a lot more to the argument of nature, rather than it just being 100% nurture, that separates and provides for unique patterns of behavior among the races. And this is not to say to just point at the white versus black, but it's all races. You wrote between Asians and Indians, and even inside of the color groups, between Somalians and Haitians, you have differences. There are very real, there's very real genetics at play with these things. And so once you get past breaking through that lie, you can then engage with the reality that is people are different. And once you can have that as the base, you can then begin to structure the argument and say, now look, this is the way that the people in the ethnos of Jews operate. This is how their pattern of behavior typically shows itself based on these elements, and you can understand them better as a people. But when you consolidate everything and say we're all the same, and the only thing that's different is like I'm white and this guy's green, well then, yeah, it's very incoherent. Nothing makes sense. And you got to look at all these other things. Well, maybe it's because like they were poor or something. Like I think he stole the bike because he was like poor or something. You know, he didn't have a dad or something. And it's like, yeah, these things play a role into it, but it doesn't explain and answer the full question. These things help. And so when the majority of the Epstein files are ripping off these goyim, these goyim, there's all these goyim here, dude. It's like, okay. Like, all right. I think maybe we now that all sides can be seen here a bit more clearly, let's have a real conversation about this. And that is one thing too. One thing, last thing I had before I go back to it, is that it's one of the biggest things that always bothered me was the fact that just it bothered me in the sense that like I never, even when I was like younger in school being told like we're all the same, whatever, it was never like, even me and my like left wing, you know, being propagandized self, I was like, it's not that I hate black people or like I want to make a point. It's just like there's no way you can argue that we are the same. Like that always bothered me as a kid, and it was like the fact that everyone moved along with it was like, it was one of those things that always stuck with me. It was like, how can you deny your physical senses? You know, and it's and I'm being taught these lessons from people who are like teaching me about 1984 and George Orwell. You know, I'm like, you're doing it right now. You're telling me that you are, and I, you know, and I came from like a bit more of a boony area, so I was around a lot more black people than you would expect. And it was never to say that. It was just to say like, they clearly do have a different style of life. How can you say otherwise? To me, that always bothered me. And I think part of the reason why I think I was so politically minded on top of my dad, you know, installing my moral compass to what it was, I was very like keen in on that fact. And it always bothered me that people lie to themselves. Let's go to the next one here. Let's go back to the Epstein files. And, yeah, Marcus Young is the top black here. That role has been solidified, and it was solidified a long time ago. And that's the thing too, is I was like, I always thought it from a Christian perspective as well, which is true. Like, you want to seek truth. You want to know truth. Like at the end of the day, like you want to know like what is real. Right? Like, what is truth? What is honest? What is the way? Right? What is the way? Right? It's like at the end of the day, you're like, show me the way, Lord. Right? That's where you are. That's where I was and have been. And you think about that and you're like, how can I actively seek the truth, but then deny something that my body, my own like basic intuitions as a human are saying otherwise? You know, and it was never to make the point that it's like one group is better than the other. But it's to make the point that wouldn't it be a lot easier to have conversations and explore solutions to problems if we would just be honest? And that's kind of always the way that I looked at it. But this is the Matt Walsh tweet, not where I wanted to go to. The one I wanted to go to was Mark Fisher writing to Epstein about the Jewish soul. So I have the Somali scan up here. We'll go to it in a little bit. This one's from Jay Dyer, and Jay Dyer's also been doing spot on job. Covering this, as he always says. I know people might feel, you know, one way or the other about Jay Dyer, but I like Jay Dyer, and I'm pretty hard pressed to dislike somebody for the most part, unless you're like just like super gay, and then it's like, oh, you're a woman. Women not just like, dude. But here we have Epstein. Jewish souls have special magical DNA. Gentiles don't. So this is from Mark Fisher to Jeffrey Epstein. And so I'll read it for you. It might be a little bit hard to read. And so it says, thought about our conversation, remediation. So I'm talking about, you know, meditation. He's like, the last conversation we had about meditation. Mark goes on, actually, it's not that hard. Why? A Jewish soul has a very different structure, different ingredients and components, relates to its higher levels differently, has different higher levels. Dude, bro, you just like, the Nazi in me is just like, it's coming out, dude. It's just like, it's whispering to me. It is like the way the razor whispers to me to just go to the mustache. My arm is fighting to go up, dude. It's like, no, you can't do it. Not now. Not now. It's too, no, we have to wait, dude. Anyways, I'll restart. Forgive me. A Jewish soul has a very different structure, different ingredients, different components. It relates to its higher levels differently, has different higher levels, relates to itself and other people in a different manner than a non-Jewish soul. To use repair methods and meditation on something as sensitive as a soul requires the right tools. You can't fix an Aston Martin with a Ford pickup truck tool set. With the right meditation, it isn't so hard. If you're coming to New York the week of the 22nd, that is good for me. Yada, yada, yada. And that is like, bro, he's just like, he's sitting there and he was like, I thought about it and you're right. It is like the Jewish soul is just like different because it's so different. You know what I mean, man? It's different because it's different, dude. Like that's kind of like the way he's talking almost, but it is like you get these vibes, right? It's very hippy dippy. Yeah, man, soul's just like different, something, man. Like we don't have those like animal Gentile souls, man. Like our souls are like self-aware, man. And I was thinking, man, like, how can I fix my Aston Martin soul, man? If all I have is like a Ford pickup truck tool set, man. You were so right, man. Like, dude, it's so like, oh. Bro, dude, who are these people, bro? And this wasn't the only one that made mention to the soul either. I think it was, this is a great point because Anthony Westgate, yeah, get the man some crystals, dude. You guys know what I'm talking about with like the girl when you see that she has like that classic like stoner drape in her bedroom. It's like where that meme came from, where the guy goes into the room, but the next cutout is like him with the scarf outside walking away. Yeah. Red flag, man. Red flag. But this is Anthony Westgate. This is a great kind of bringing you some context, some facts, hard hitting facts about Jews. Funny enough, I wore a tie-dye shirt yesterday. It's one of my most comfortable shirts too. But you're right. To be Aryan means to wear prickly polos that collars are way too tight around my neck. This is an excerpt here. These are an excerpt from a portion on Kabbalah. And it says here, in another work, he offers one of the most astounding statements ever uttered on the subject. Quote, the difference between the Jewish soul, itself, its inner desires, its overflow, its character, its standing, and that of all the nations at all their levels is greater and deeper than the difference between the human soul and the soul of an animal. Between the latter, there is merely a quantitative distinction. Between the former, an essential qualitative distinction pertains. Man. So this is more of a philosophical, like a more of a studious kind of excerpt here, being pulled from R. Abraham Yitzhak HaKohen Kook. Quite funny that his last name is Cook, because he is a kook. But therein, he makes the argument that there is a greater difference, that there's actually less of a difference between the soul of a human being and an animal than there is of a Jew and a human. Now that's quite honestly insane, because they're placing themselves on a greater level than even being human. Like a Jew is greater than a human here in this excerpt here. And Anthony Westgate is a good follow as well too. You could covers very similarly in strong detail, much like Jay Dyer does as well. And yes, we are considered livestock. They seemingly make they go out of their way to painstakingly make very small exceptions and distinctions. Like as close as they are to animals, there are small exceptions. Like, dude, it's crazy. I'm just glad that we're all waking up. And that's the part that matters. The part that matters is that we're not going back in the box. The mainstream conservatives need to look this kind of stuff in the eye, and we need to engage with this as the reality of that it is. Spawner's God has a work conference call to get to. Christ is God. Everyone hit the like button. Thank you very much, Steve. Have a good rest of your day, brother, in case you don't come back. And have a good one at work. Anybody who is at work currently, hope you're having a good day, man. Get me like choking on spit. Dunder Whiffen, thank you for the super chat, brother. He says, Christ is king. Christian nationalism is the answer. Thanks for being an inspiration. Look into the post-millennial end times view. The church wins. Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad I can be an inspiration. I try my best, and obviously I'm not perfect by any means, and probably will never be, and ultimately will never be. But I appreciate that very much. I'm trying my hardest. Christian nationalism W, and Christ is king. Amen. Well, the next things we're going to get to, and this, we're still on Goyim. So understand, we have not left Goyim. We are still on Goyim. We're still on the section that is Goyim. And this is, so point number 8. So we're about halfway through the sections all pertaining from what's been dumped out on Epstein about the Goyim. So this is one of the newer ones that was a bit more robust because there was multiple that came out from Penny Segal. But she is an entertainment publicist. She is supposedly behind one of the top 12 media marketing firms in America. And she has a very interesting conversation with Epstein about Goyim and very Jewish themes. So when you take a look at this, this is where you get the Goyim and abundance quote from. And so we're going to start here at the bottom because that's how these chains work. And so Penny Segal writes this. Forgot to tell you, as a thank you to Denise Rich for having me on her boat in St. Tropez, I have no idea, Ship of Fools, my office is helping her with event press coverage for her dead daughter's cancer benefit, Angle Ball, in October. Didn't want to think I am a world-class snorer, packing for East Hampton. Then the response comes back from Epstein. Dubin, Dershowitz, Zuckerman all said yes to September 18th, Yom Kippur Redemption, which if you don't know, Yom Kippur refers to the Yom Kippur War. Redemption sounds like a wrestling event. I need you to oversee. And then Penny Segal writes, is it going to be 100% Jew night? Evan Perelman on Yum Yum has some Goyim. I am getting my media elite list FedExed out of Saturday and will email some names. What about Charlie Rose? Love him. What about Jane Fonda, my new best friend? Nothing like an ex-Jew hater with a Jewish boyfriend to mix it up. Peg. Then Epstein responds, nope, Goyim in abundance. JP Morgan execs, brilliant WASPs. If you don't know, WASP simply just stands for White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. It is another kind of coded term, but that one's a bit more out in the open. And Mussolinian says, I'm a bit behind in the stream, but to answer the Christian nation versus white nation question, the question itself is a category error because the faith of your parents does not change the command. To honor them the same is the case with race. As Christians, we must love our race, and even if a white country is pagan, they are our brothers by blood. St. Paul was a Jew, not a Jew, and was aware that the majority of Jews were unbelieving, yet he still stated that he would burn in hell for them. The thing is like, as much as like that might be an argument, and like I get that's the argument as well from like the Corey Mahler crowd, the argument at large still is being had in that paradigm. That was more so the point of that, which is if push came to shove, those are the options being presented to you. What will you take? Right? These are conversations that are happening on the backlash between people like Dave Riley, Rebecca, Vincent James recently came back. I've yet to been able to make a mention of that, but Vincent James did come back. And he's been making a lot more splashes there. But these are conversations that are happening. And I actually agree with you. I do think that there is something uniquely, you cannot separate the two. And when you look at some of the order language saying that also, like race, nation, they're the same thing. I get those arguments. I do. I'm just saying the way that it will be presented to the average person and the way they're going to engage with it is that perspective, not what you are laying out. I agree with what you're laying out, but I'm more so interacting with what is going to be the average kind of idea that seeming if we continually moving in this direction, that is the idea that they're going to be presented with, and that'll be how they engage with it. But only to bring up in the idea, in the sense of these are certain things that I think people need to think about more and think about now because we're moving in that direction. Thank you very much for the super chat, Mrs. Orthodox Boomer Grandma. I appreciate that very much. Thank you very much for that. To a $20 super chat. She says someone needs to develop a comedy show around this. Sam Hyde, Jay, and blast it everywhere. Sam Hyde is pretty hilarious just naturally. I don't know. Is Jay Dyer People find Jay Dyer funny. He does have funny moments. I will give him that. He does. I think for a lot of people, he comes off a bit like, serious or maybe a little bit too serious. But I like Jay Dyer. I like getting the very complex and stream of consciousness kind of information flows from people like that. Jews rock. Perfect timing. And but thank you very much for your first super chat. You guys, I had seen a chat or a comment from Orthodox Boomer Grandma some time ago, and hopefully I replied to it. I think I did. But she had said, this stream makes me feel like I have friends, and I'm glad that people can be friendly here, and you feel like you got friends there. So I'm glad you're getting some out of it, and I appreciate you seeing it here all the time too. Let me scroll back up here and catch up a little bit. Is Red Elephant's website? I don't know what's happened. Where he's been at with Red Elephant. I've largely only followed him from the Backlash and X, specifically. That's where I kind of like typically follow him from. So if he's running the Red Elephant's website, I'm not familiar with that at all. He might be though, but that was his old YouTube channel. Yeah, as a Glitcher 44 is pointing out. I don't know if Grandma's on the Discord or not. She's certainly welcome to join. That's for sure. Oh, she is. Okay, she is in the Discord. I wasn't sure if she was or not. Okay. Well, glad you are. I do my best to notify and stay in there. I feel like I've been in the Discord pretty often lately. But that was Penny Segal, and then this was one of the other ones that came out from Penny Segal. Second one, less so in the view of Goyam, but bring it while we're on Penny Segal. I'll bring it up and keep it here. What we have on this one is a quote to you from Drew Hernandez that says, "We were told there was nothing in these files. They tried to cover this up. Disgusting." And so Jackson Hinkle here, breaking, which is kind of why I hate that I'm reading this off of Jackson Hinkle, but he says, breaking, Peggy Segal, one of Hollywood's most powerful publicists, told Epstein can bring a little baby back for you or two, boys or girls, so Madonna. And so here's this in question here. So it's from Penny Segal back in 2009. The subject says Kenya, which is kind of a little wild. But it's from Penny and it's to Jeffrey. On the plane now with Maddie. We are about to take off for Amsterdam to Nairobi. We land the morning of the 19th in Amsterdam and late evening of the 19th in Nairobi. On Sunday morning, we fly into the bush to Cotter's Camp and the Masamara, then to Sasa and 24th to 26th. Then on 26th to yada yada. We cannot thank you enough. Yet another life experience. If the Maasai warriors don't eat us, the pirates from Somalia. I hadn't seen that yet. That's funny. Oh, man. Yeah, Somalians are going to eat us all at this rate. If the Maasai warriors don't eat us, the pirates from Somalia will. Coming to PB to see you in January, taking photos. We'll have a ball and think of you all the time. Can bring a little baby back for you or two, boys or girls. So Madonna. We'll email when we get to Amsterdam. And this bottom paragraph says she saw Sarah the Duchess on the Today Show and then Regis today. She was very compelling. And more communications just from Penny Segal about the networking or the network, the neural net that is the Epstein network. And this one I think is very vague. I will say that. That's very, 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 very vague with like nothing else that kind of hints to it. However, it is still something, and another grain of sand in this massive pile we have. Pirates from Somalia eating them, though. It's hilarious. That's crazy. But it's, little baby is what's kind of insane about that. Just disturbing the way these people talk, even regardless. Like, even if it wasn't like anything nefarious, it's just like the way they talk is disturbing. Like, is there no other, you have like no other jargon or like way to interact and engage with the words that are being said? So this next one here, again, we're still on Goyam. The theme is Goyam. This is from Larry Summers, who is asking Epstein about some tax advice. And so this is some more there, but you can really just see here. And so this is from Larry Summers writing to Epstein. I'm writing another anti-tax bill screed. I don't want to use rifle shot benefit for Virgin Island billionaires, but want examples of this kind. Please give me 2. Epstein writes back, I don't know of any. They did a great job of closing most, at least for the Goyim. And he responds, oh, come on. But once again, another communication in 2017 this time, specifically about, finding tax breaks and how the Goyim have to shut it off. But if you're not a Goy, you probably have a better chance. Once again, the theme of the way that they look and speak about people who are not Jewish, the non-Jewish individuals, if you will. Number 11 is another similar one like we saw from David Stern and just how we saw from Larry Summers, but this is from the owner of the 76ers, supposedly, allegedly, that is Josh Harris. And he quote down here, he wrote, Jeffrey Epstein wrote, you should feel free to call me directly so that I may explain my thinking. Any conversation that you prefer to stay between just us will. It's my financial confessional booth for Jews. And then the response from Josh to Epstein to that is, will do, Jeff. I'm not sure there's much controversy at this point. After the call, if there's, the happy to catch up. And so here's a great example of what I mean by not getting too quick with it and taking everything for a fact. Because look at how the way that this is outlined. I'm going to have to move the chat for a second here. Move this out. So this is what the post says. So this is the caption from the guy who posted it. He says that the Jewish owner of the 76ers told Epstein that his secrets are safe with him. But that's not the case. If you just read this here, this is the from email. So this is what Josh Harris wrote. This right here in 2016, Epstein wrote. Jeffrey Epstein Vacation wrote. This is what Epstein is writing. So this guy is wrong. That's why you can't take and just look at these captions. You have to actually look through these and absorb it for a little bit to make sure you're not making some kind of very easy factual error, right? That's for some people, they don't catch on those things. They report on them and then they pull it up and they're like, oh crap, it's literally the other way around. It's Epstein and she caught it right here. It's the other way around. Epstein saying that to Harris, not vice versa. And but again, I get it. I get wanting to push these things out there and getting the attention on it. Now we have one thing here. This is from the former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, which he's going to have some more moments. So we have some leaked audio actually we'll listen to from Mike Benz, which I thought was really good. And again, in the same frame. Now this can be better understood from the previous example, which there's even an example in The Sopranos. I can't remember what the guy's name is, but there's a Jew who's hanging onto this wall in The Sopranos, and he's touching and covering it, and he's talking about where is Rome now? And Tony, I think that's his name. Positive is his name. I need to watch more Sopranos. People are going to attack me for it if I get the names wrong. But the Jew on the ground who's looking at this wall and all these these inscriptions. He's like, where is Rome now? And Tony's standing over him. He's like, you're looking at him. You're looking at him, bro. Which is hilarious. And the same way that a viral video that came out, this had been maybe about a month or 2 months ago when I'd covered this, there was in the moment when they're declaring the ninth front war on social media and anti-Semitism, and they're bringing in people like Emily Austin and Xavier Rousseau and many others to come into New York to sit down and talk about how they're going to push all this propaganda and this anti-Israel push, when they had had 5 times their Hezbollah budget. They had just increased it. They got to deal with X, with a French company, with YouTube, and with Google for ads, I think to the tune of something around $42 million to pump pro-Israel ads. While he was in the United States, Benjamin Netanyahu, he's going up the escalator in what I believe to be a mall. And as he's going up this escalator, he's got this book in his hand. And the book is The Revenge Against Rome or something like that. And he's making the point that what one of their current missions is to win against Rome. And it's to show you that there's this blood rivalry is it remains. And even Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, is still looking to defeat Rome. And so with that being understood here, this is the former Israeli prime minister talking about Egypt much in the same way, but in a slightly different light. And in this one, this is from AF Post, This is from Ehud Barak to Epstein saying, "What a terrible mistake of Pharaoh to let my people go. The Jewish people are flourishing everywhere as never before. Where is Egypt now?" Best, EB. And so it's to show you, it's like all people's groups that have ever like, you know, expelled them or had any kind of beef with them. It's like they hold these perennial, like forever grudges that like won't ever leave. And so, just to make the point here, which is like, this is one of these patterns of behaviors that I'd mentioned earlier that can only be understood if we can move to the foundation that is race realism. Now, number 13, now this is going to be the last one on the Goyim, or at least is like the main focus is like on the Goyim and like Judaism and the split there. At least that I've aggregated so far, one that I'll bring attention to. And it's this other one here with this anonymous girl writing to Epstein. And it says, quote, that every Jewish guy had dumped her because they think that her non-Jewish genes are going to mess hers up or mess theirs up. And the better way to understand this is the fact that it is a matrilineal race. Therein, if a Jewish man has children with a non-Jewish woman, they are not, in their view, Jewish. So it is matrilineal, meaning that the mother must be Jewish. And this, therein, what you're finding in is that this girl is being dumped and discarded because she's just not Jewish. Talking about her non-Jewish genes. Somebody said Jared Kushner. That's funny. That is funny. Okay. So that's kind of like the Goyim section of it, right? We're going to cover that. Just to make a hard point here, we're gonna switch to another theme of the Epstein files. Now this theme is going to get a lot darker, and we're going to kind of move into a bit more maybe like the schizo. Let's see some more corroboration of these things before we accept them as fact, because there's some insane stories in this next batch. So moving into this one, human trafficking, the human trafficking elements that we have so far that have kind of circulated here. So in terms of human trafficking, one of the first things that I had seen was actually this anonymous tip that came out of Madison, Alabama. And this was quoted by Owen Schroyer. He says, "We begin. Email is talking directly of Epstein and child sex trafficking." And so on this one, what you have here, this one is insane. Now, it's not as insane as the one we're going to get to right after this, but this one's still insane. And so it's from a special agent here. He's saying that he's a threat intake examiner, right? A TIE, tie at the FBI National Threat Operations Center, where we receive information from the public regarding criminal activity and threats to national security. So he's forwarding the following information for their situational awareness. The violation, human trafficking, and it was submitted on August 31st, 2022. So this is actually pretty recent. But again, anonymous tip, right? So this is why we take things with a grain of salt. Threat to life, false. Emergency, false. But here's the submitted text. The submitted text reads that Jeffrey Epstein was bringing children to the Omni to human sex traffic them out to rich business people. They write, if you go to 901 East Carey Street Suite 210 in Richmond, Virginia, in the South State Bank on the top floor, that there's a housekeeping door. Now he writes that he thinks inside the men's restroom once you enter on the right. But inside, it should be a crawl space in the ceiling, a water faucet, and a wall on the right. The wall on the right behind the actual wall contains a passageway with an inscription about Gabe, a human trafficking victim that Epstein kept. He says, I do not know what is behind the wall, but I remember as kids, we were both brought to this area and trafficked in and out of the premises along with the other kids. That, to me, I would say is insane. And I also really don't buy it. I'll tell you right now, I really don't buy it. I'll bring attention to it. I'll say that's what they said. This is what's in here, but I don't buy it. And part of the reason I don't buy it is just literally the last sentence. But I remember as kids, we were both brought to this area and trafficked in and out of the premises, along with other kids. Like, you're telling me you were human trafficked, like, from like right where you live at, and then you remained to live around there, like they brought you back when you were done? I just like, again, like you could, sure they can do some insane MK Ultra and all this whatnot. To me, it's just like, it's easier to believe this person just is crazy. But The next one to me comes off a little less crazy, and I think is maybe probably one of the more insane things that's come out of the Epstein files, if not the single most insane thing, obviously outside of just the Jewish supremacy. But in terms of item specific. Now this is pretty aggressive here, but here's what it is. And it's just this screenshot here. So in this screenshot, what you essentially have is the guy writing the email is accusing the Department of Justice of having somebody from either like the NSA or the CIA or the State Department on his team. And he's suggesting that like their knowledge of prosecuting this sex trafficker is going to generate a hit on the judges that are assigned to the case. So, quote, the email alleges that there were multiple violent attacks against them in an attempt to stop the prosecution of a sex trafficker. So in quote here, it says numerous white American agents following us in vans assigned to the U.S. Embassy. So what you're seeing here is it basically seems like a plea from somebody, some agent, wondering why he feels and is of the belief and suspects that there's other American agencies that are tracking them and monitoring them. So we're talking about intelligence agency on intelligence agency type crime here. Like FBI versus CIA type stuff. So I'll go to the letter and I'll just read it verbatim from the letter here. The original message wrote, that was a response. So I'll read the initial one first. Quote, we've had another serious incident since an American shot the trial judge in our child sex trafficking case here. He and I both think this latest incident is tied to the fact we have reached out to your team. Who on your team knows we were talking to you? Anyone assigned from NSA, CIA, or U.S. State Department? Please understand, lives here are in jeopardy. He continues, we have had 4 armed attacks against us. My partner has shot and killed 2 and wounded 5 American agents to date. Numerous white American agents following us in vans assigned to U.S. Embassy. Jorge was attacked and lost his arm. The president of Mexico is keenly aware of our case against Marcinko and other U.S. officials. Now, the Marcinko in this is supposedly meant to be the guy, like the former founder of like the Navy SEAL Team 6 or something. I had it here. Richard Marcinko is the late founder of SEAL Team 6, so, allegedly, who died in like 2021. It continues, this case we have here is most certainly connected to yours. We have the proof. Our case will help bring a whole new dynamic to what you know and who is involved. Prince Philip is small fry compared to what we have uncovered. Then it goes on. You may want to question the ex-U.S. ambassador to Mexico, Mr. Earl Anthony Wayne, about his involvement with an underage girl when he attended and was arrested by the federal police. We believe that Marcinko and Epstein were involved organizing this party and it was held in Juarez, Mexico in 2014 at a U.S. consulate-controlled housing facility. He goes on, ask him how he knows Richard Marcinko. Ask Epstein how he knows Richard Marcinko. He was sentenced in Mexico in 2017 to a life sentence. Oh, no, ask Earl Anthony Wayne how he knows Richard Marcinko. Earl Anthony Wayne was sentenced in Mexico in 2017 to a life sentence for impregnating an 11-year-old girl. Her son's DNA matches Wayne's 100%, but he is allowing an ex-U.S. Marine to stand in his place to serve his sentence in Mexico. That was an agreement worked out between our U.S. State Department and a judge in Mexico after a huge payoff. Mr. Anthony has an outstanding arrest warrant here in Mexico for avoiding sentencing. His cell number is redacted. I want to confirm that the phone you'll be using has been swept for malware and keyloggers. After our call, you'll understand why we are so concerned with secure comms here. Ken Turner. And the response back to that is, my task force is not affiliated with the intelligence community. If you want, arrange a call time. This one is like wild, because obviously there's a lot there, and it's very, very, very specific, very detailed, and very few redactions. Now, if you just look this up straight up, AI will immediately tell you there's no credible evidence that Earl Anthony Wayne did anything in Mexico, yada, yada, yada. So it seems like there's almost kind of a setup, a protective element already about Earl Anthony Wayne. I don't know too much about him, to be quite honest with you. but the photos were floating around. And it was, this is, I mean, like, I don't know how you even react to something like this. Right? This one is insane. Like, I get the whole, like, the Jewish thing, like, that's the same, but, like, this is crazy. And on two things, right? Well, three major things that stick out with this one. One, they're outright saying that they rearranged with it. They paid off a judge to allow another American to serve the life sentence for our U.S. ambassador to Mexico, who is Earl Anthony Wayne, an unnamed Marine. The second thing is that it's very specific and clear, and he does say that DNA matches. So it's like, there's probably got to be information and data pertaining to that, you would think. But the biggest thing to me is did we have our intelligence agencies snuffing out other guys in our intelligence agencies because they were doing the right thing? Is this part of the operation? Is part of the operation that you let some guys do the right thing while you keep them in the dark, and then the others you just go out there and every so often like eliminate them? Like, to me, like, that's just like, this one is like very beyond the pale. Now, I'm not going to sit here and treat it as like 100% unadulterated fact, but what I would say is, like, I would like to see this explored. I really would like to see this explored to a much stronger degree, particularly seeing like Earl Anthony Wayne being investigated, like, you know, being subpoenaed for, like, you know, documentation. Like, without a doubt, I have to. I had never even heard of the guy until I saw this story come out about the Epstein files. And Ask His Lane's dad, yeah, Robert Maxwell. Well, that's another element that we'll get to too, because I think the Robert Maxwell stuff is kind of wild. That throws it back into the bus of Israel, Netanyahu, and Mossad. And but I just want to make sure I covered that one, because that one was insane, and I've not really seen much about it. And I'll show you, right? Like, I'll just take it to you. You know, if we go to Brave here, and we just straight up type in something pretty simple, you know, we're going like Earl Anthony Wayne. Yeah, you can tell I already searched it. It's auto searching me now. But it'll straight up go, no. Oh, it's already changed it. Interesting. So these allegations originate from a man named Ken Turner, which we saw in the email, whose claims appear in the Epstein files but have not been independently verified. So who's Ken Turner then? Let's do some investigation work right now. Who is Kenneth Daryl Turner? Let's keep that here. Who is Kenneth? It's Turner. Who is this guy? Oh, so he passed away like literally just last year. He served in the U.S. Air Force. Hey, well, R.I.P., man. Looks like Times Now has an article here. This is the Earl Anthony Wayne. This is the guy who supposedly did the impregnating. Kenneth Daryl Turner. But who was Kenneth Daryl Turner like working with? So he was in the Air Force, right? Oh, okay. In a separate document, an FBI intake form, Turner states that in July or August 2018, he contacted the FBI and provided information he had gathered between 2000 and 2017. Turner also claims that in April or May 2014, the American embassy in Mexico was raided by the Mexican federal police. Among them was also Wayne. Turner says Wayne left Mexico immediately afterward and was later tried in absentia in 2015. The Times Now is saying there's no public evidence, verified court record, or reporting from major news organizations confirming that Earl Anthony Wayne raped an 11-year-old girl or is formally accused of such crimes in the Epstein files. Well, he is accused of it. We know that. I guess what would make it formal? kind of a weak article from Times Now. I was hoping we'd get some more information on Kenneth. What was he doing? Who was he a part of? Who was he coordinating with, right? Like, that's why the redactions and all this stuff is insane. There needs to be no redactions. The fact that they keep putting redactions out, like, I want to see Todd Blanche. I want to see Todd Blanche be tried for life in prison. I'm serious, dude. That all people who are in the Department of Justice right now, they should all be tried for life in prison. The fact that there's a black box on anything at this point in time, prison. Straight to prison. CASM only, right? We're talking photos and videos. So that's it. For emails, dude, protecting names, nope. Victims, it's one thing. But protecting names like that, not a chance. Literally not a chance. Life in prison for Todd Blanche. I'd go harder, but I feel like I'm already testing my limits on YouTube as it is right now. So that's kind of like the insane story. There's another one that I would not spend too much time on, but it does kind of speak in the same vein. Now, this one was supposedly redacted, but people have kind of made it out that the name is from Susan Hamblin. And so what it says here, that the communications between Susan Hamblin and Jeffrey Epstein, let me put it on screen for you, it'd be better than just watching me read off the side. I give you permission to kill him. And they're asking, who is Susan Hamblin and why is she giving Jeffrey Epstein permission to kill? That's what you'll see here. But again, it was a very poor attempt to redact. The box is a little bit too higher. And supposedly people have been made it out that it is Susan Hamblin. That's what they're saying. And so per James Lee, Susan Hamblin is a financial advisor and founder of the adoption agency Kids to Families. How perfect. How perfectly wonderful that the person here in the Epstein files runs an adoption agency. Fitting. Uncle Hal says, so far 43 victims in the Epstein files have been doxxed and had their information public due to shitty redaction policies from the U.S. Department of Justice. And I believe I did see, like, some of the victims were claiming that they felt like the way that they had such poorly redacted their names, that it was almost like a threat for the DOJ to stop asking for the files to be released, which is just insane. Like, how depraved can you go? Like, we're already like at the bottom. We're below the bottom of the barrel. We're digging in hell right now. We're digging in the coal fire and the sulfur ashes of hell for how depraved and deep these people can go. And then DC Drano joining in, like, dude, like, if this guy doesn't get off my feed, I'm going to single-handedly make sure everybody knows he's Jewish for the rest of my life. Ooh. And I think too, it was like, part of the issue was like, in some of these releases, they were doing it with like Adobe Pro and like with readers as well. Just insane. Like, just do what Thomas Massey told you to. Right, get back to work for Massey. Massey runs the Congress now. Massey's top Politico. And then one thing I caught that I didn't get a chance to look into at all, but I'll bring it to people's attention, is I saw this earlier from pamphlets. It's breaking that the former FBI director, Andrew McCabe, is allegedly listed and spoken, how would you say that? Spoken in a manner of such that he is a child predator, according to the Epstein files. And it's so it's kind of aggressive, to be honest with you. Like this section, so it's like they word the headline like that, but I'll read it for you. So what it says here on this one, with the one that's relevant to Andrew McCabe being called an alleged child predator, quote, several years ago, FBI agent Andrew McCabe put a FISA warrant on me unjustly. I witnessed him pay a woman to have sex with her underage daughter. I don't know how I got to this place, but I remember a man telling me to get up and stop him. I got up and I looked at the mother and Andrew, but I wasn't brave enough and I couldn't remember. All these years, this was just another time I was taken away from my bed at gunpoint. I am a victim of being raped several times and set up by Winter Hill gang members. Winter Hill gang members that are in the FBI and CIA. People have also faked their death to be in the CIA at the expense of terrorizing me. One man, Keith Shipley, invited me to lunch in 2011. I got in the vehicle and was handed a drink of water by a man in the front seat, and it was laced again. These men were also Winter Hill gang members. I woke up tied to a chair, and a man had a propane tank and was waving flames at me. He said I could live if Keith drank cyanide. It was all fake, and Keith is alive. So, you know, that one again kind of comes with that bit of energy of like, I really don't know if I can believe it. You know what I mean? Like it just had like, you know, and it's unfortunate because if these things were happening at the way that this is going and the inability to believe anything anymore, it's like, it's crazy, man. And it's kind of unfortunate because that is an element, which is nobody trusts literally anything, no matter who's saying it. Everyone feels like there's someone out to get them. Someone's out to pull the rug out from underneath their eyes or pull the wool over it. And I'm just sitting here like, what if that was completely real? What if that was 100% completely real and that person's life has just forever been ruined? You know, not to throw it out there and say insane things are possible, but just to say like, you know, in a low trust society, it's unfortunate because people are going to be able to get a lot away with a lot more just because the burden of making someone believe that crazy stuff is so out the window. So moving on to from Seagate. Interesting. Isn't Seagate like the hard drive manufacturer? Is that who I'm thinking of? For Keith Shipley? I can look it up. Why do they keep giving me the same gay, like, I don't care. I'm not filing my taxes. Get rid of your TurboTax ad. It's a joke. It's a joke. My FBI officer who monitors me just sent me a very unfriendly text message. It was a joke. Couldn't think. Interesting. Broker LinkedIn, is that who it would be? Like this big broker guy? Packaging Corporate of America? Unsure. Interesting. There's just a lot of these people who are attaching these files, man. A lot of names I know and a lot of names I also don't know. Forgot the Minecraft one was there. Okay. So one I want to go to, I think I want to jump ahead to this one. From Mike Benz. What happened to it? I had it. From Mike Benz. Here we go. This is a longer form video from Mike Benz. And this is some of the audio that was leaked out of here. But a 10-minute long video here. The full audio source file can be found on this tweet as well too. We'll take a listen to what he's going to cover here. But this audio here, let me go pull it up here. So per Dropsite News, forgive me, as Ehud Barak was just like leaving office, he coordinated with Epstein. That's how this conversation goes and plays out. As he's leaving official government service in Israel, he's turning to Epstein for guidance on how he can not lose like his social clout, essentially. So what he's doing is this is like the process, right? This is the collusion, the incestuous nature of the Politico and the private sector. And so what you're going to hear in this conversation is this. Epstein is helping him coordinate with his network with Ehud Barak's IOUs, meaning all of the people that Ehud Barak did favors for while he was the prime minister serving there in Israel. Epstein basically asked him to form a list. And then they connects him to who? Peter Thiel and Palantir. And so you're listening to essentially Jeffrey Epstein give Ehud Barak the strategy and the game plan on what he needs to do to be able to transition directly out of a prime minister position and be able to have into a personal like financial wealth and having a little bit of a fortune that way, having a little bit of power that way. Here's this video here. Mike Benz does a solid job breaking it down.
Strap in because you are about to get a level of access we may never get again. This is an incredible audio file. On justice.gov, I'll put the source link below. I'm at the 210 mark. And I'm just going to play this full exchange between Jeffrey Epstein and Ehud Barak. For context, now I found this from a clip that Ryan Grimm posted. He deduced that this was a February 2013 meeting between Larry Summers, Ehud Barak, and Jeffrey Epstein. For context, Ehud Barak was the head of Israeli military intelligence from 1983 to 1985. Then he became the prime minister of Israel at the same time that Bill Clinton was the president of the United States. Then he became the basically their version of the head of the Pentagon, the defense minister. He left that position in March 2013, and this is February 2013, 1 month before he leaves government office. Now, this is important because what you are about to see is a conversation between the outside fixer, Jeffrey Epstein, and the still head of Israeli military as he transitions to the private sector, and the conversations about how to create your own private in mediating or formerly government officials.
So what Tom asked me this morning, and
Tom appears to be Tom Pritzker, who is the chairman of the Pritzker Foundation. He's the head of the Hyatt hotel chain. His brother is J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois.
He told you at Davos was he thought you should make a list of his words, not was
metrics.
He said, yes, but who has IOUs to you? Is that who's out of the people in the past who you think you're close to? He said that he really wanted you to make this list of this person owes me a favor, this person owes me his life, this person owes me his job.
So what you're hearing him say, again, this is someone who led Israel's most elite covert commando unit, and then became head of Israeli military intelligence, then became the head of the country, and then became the head of its military, and is now going out on his own at the age of 71 to try to make money to convert what was government power into personal financial power.
And so you're hearing them, they're going to talk about this list. And Epstein's like, I want you to make this list. Think of everybody, anybody you can. And so Epstein says it a couple more times. Like, think about, who you did favors for, like who owes you, right? Who's your network? And so we'll go to a little bit further along here. Because they're going to get to the point where Epstein's going to bring up two things. One, Peter Thiel, he's going to misspell it, but also this other board that's in Epstein's network that he'll be able to get him signed up for to the tune of like $3 million, I believe is what he says.
Consulting agreements, yes, VC capital, you name it. I'm going to keep playing.
This person owes me.
Yeah, okay.
And so you got to work it backwards and say, here is my, instead of thinking about what the opportunities are first, because right now you're focused on opportunities.
Yeah.
I need you to focus on your
okay.
personal balance sheet in terms of competences. What's your real strengths? What's the liability? One of the liabilities is you're 71 years old, so you can't be in a business. It takes 20 years to make money.
Yeah.
We have to make money in the next 3 years. So, people, competence, things. So, I talked to Ian yesterday. I asked him to come.
Yeah.
He flew in from London. He's great for an hour.
What was his impression from the?
Just listen to this ourselves. That's rough. It sounded better when I had it on my headphones. Oh, it just like straight up downloads it for you? You guys can't hear that, can you? Oh, that's annoying. Let me find a better one. There's more of this. There we go. That's what I was listening to earlier. You just need to listen to this 2 minute.
There's
Excuse me, dude.
two cyber companies, Lookout and even though I know Peter, I've never met Peter Thiel. And everybody says he sort of jumps around and acts sort of strange, like he's on drugs.
Smoking, yeah.
Yeah.
He looks under drugs.
However, he has a company called Palantir. Pallen. Tier. Palantir is Peter Thiel's company. And Lookout.
Palantir, Palantir?
Yes.
P-A-L-A-N-T-R-E.
How you write Thiel? Thielley?
Thiel.
L-L-Y.
No. Thiell.
Okay.
So he thought that Peter would put you on the board of Palantir. Peter Thiel is one of the best. I've never met him. He's going to come here next week. So I wanted to talk to him after I talked to you.
Okay.
He and Andreessen, it's called Andreessen Horowitz. Andreessen Horowitz, that's what they pay Larry $1 million a year. Just to advise them.
Andreas and?
Andreessen, Andreessen.
Which I believe is Mark Andreessen and Anthony Horowitz, right? It's Ben Horowitz, forgive me. I always forget his first name. But this is who, this is the Epstein network, right? Which we're very familiar with Andreessen here. And this is Epstein bringing up these elements of who's involved with him on his side of the aisle. And it's insane because what you're about to hear next is him essentially just giving a board position to Ehud Barak. Go back to it.
And Horowitz.
And Howard.
H-O-R-O. Horowitz.
Ah, Horowitz.
Yes.
What they are? It's a lobbyist. What they are?
They are the biggest venture capital people in Silicon Valley.
What, bigger than Sequoia or Kleiner Perkins?
These are the new Kleiner Perkins. Everybody, these are the smart boys.
Yeah.
So those two companies right away, in terms of, I said that we need, now, in the next 3 weeks, if you're going to leave,
So again, from Job Site News though isn't probably you got to be careful with fully taken from Job Site News. Job Site News is funded by some questionable individuals. And again, you have to understand too, there is a left-wing and right-wing dynamic of the Jewish entities too. So that can be understated as well. But that is kind of, and quite possibly is, and he says in there too, he'd never met him before. This seems to be like, this is the entrance of, Peter Thiel being attached at the, at the highest levels. And that would have been 12, 13 years ago at this point. Because I believe there is mention in the longer file. Ehud Barak gives away that he was 71 years old at the time, and he is 83 now, so that puts us around 12 years ago or so. And my how things have changed, where they have been. Where's Andreessen and Horowitz now? So that's kind of the element with Palantir that ropes up with Peter Thiel as well, and some kind of like lookout company, which I'm like not really too sure who the lookout company is from. But again, Job Site News, I'm trying to remember. House will probably know off the top of his head. Job Site News is funded by somebody that's extremely questionable, and I cannot remember who it is. But as far as I understand, I believe does come from a left wing. I think it's Soros. I might be correct in that. I think Job Site's funded by one of the Soros or Open Society. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that, but they have some questionable backings. However much you might see their news and you're like, oh wow, that's crazy. I believe it was Job Site News had like one of the most widely shared articles about, Charlie Kirk and the direct aftermath of his assassination. And I think they were the one, I'm sorry. I think they were the one that had posed there was this big donor meeting and had some of the questionable statements from Bill Ackman involved in there too. Been a minute since I read that article though. Now going up to, so we made it past Goyim, we made it past human trafficking. So now we're on to the third theme, which is Netanyahu, Mossad, and Israel, but specifically in those elements. So we're not looking at it from a Judaico, is that how you say it? Or like the Goyim, or like the religious, the ethnic perspective. We're looking at it more so from the blackmail operation in the government, in the political perspective now. So per Dominic Michael Trippi, thank you, House. Yeah, it's the Open Society Foundation. Thank you. The Open Society Foundation is one of their biggest funders, their job site news. I always confuse them and somebody else. But this is per Dominic Michael Trippi. And the newly released Epstein documents reveal an alleged connection between Jeffrey Epstein and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, involving Epstein assisting in securing meetings with Netanyahu. And what you will see right here is a message from Roy Navin to Jacob Frankel, and it says, against all odds, we have been granted a meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu. And then you'll see that the JES here, which I think the JES is Jeffrey Epstein, which is like the, not that, forgive me. The JEE vacation, forgive me. Do not take what I said, I was wrong about that. But what up here is, though, is Jeffrey Epstein's responding to this, saying, surprise, surprise. Almost in a sense of like, you should have known I would have been able to coordinate that. But again, very vague. It's one of those more like vague posts, you know, lacking context, please. Have you guys seen those memes? Where it's like the beggar fox from like the old Hound movie. Context, please. Like it's like vague posting is a thing now. People will straight up like post, man, I can't believe she did that, with like nothing else. And you'll always see in the comments, it's like some like fox seems like got a cup of change. She's like, context, please. Anyone, can you please provide context? Or you'll see these ones with it's like a big soy jack. It'll be the soy jack, and he was like, it's like, I require context. I'm putting on my I need context hat. The memes are just like, it's crazy. And you know what's funny is, I'm forgetting what kind of Orwellian and, you know, future sci-fi, you know, fiction book I had been taking the inspiration from, but there was this kind of this idea in one of these books that at a certain point with the current direction of the way that English in the American language, or, you know, American English and the way that American English was treated continually, is that at a certain point, people would just start talking completely on a bunch of, you know, acronyms. All of a sudden we would move from like, you know, hey, how are you doing, to, you know, like, hey, how are you? It'd be like, hi. You know, people would be talking acronyms. That was kind of like the idea behind one of these books, that the English language would get like compressed into a bunch of acronyms because it would continually grow. People would want a faster way to communicate, say more words with less syllables type thing. And we didn't get that, actually. What we got was memes. You know, we got memes instead. We got, which I would actually rather have, to be honest with you, which is funny because the memes are like the same thing, but a different way, which is getting a lot of information out with very little, like without having to explain or be verbose. It's like, here's a meme, here's like a little picture, but you get the idea out. You get a big idea out with like just one photo. It's all you need. And like, you see some of these memes now, dude, and it's like, you have to like understand like the meme that came from the meme that came from the meme that you just had to be there to understand this meme. And it's like the direct, like how like kind of nuance they're getting to is just, it's hilarious. I love it. But the one with the context hat, the soy jack, where he's like, I require context, please. I'm putting on my thinking cap. It's like, because it's just all these people who gave up on the vague posting. They're like, dude, I don't understand what the point of these vague posts are. Memes are better. And it's funny, you know, I would expect an Orthodox to say memes are better, right? The iconography. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate them. Actually huge and high praise to be mentioned in the same vein as Nick. Although I would say I'm nowhere close to Nick right now. I'm just like, you know, listen, I took a sabbatical and I became a wigger for a few years, man. And I'm just behind, dude. I'm just behind all the times. Like, you know, he stayed on the grind. I got to college and said, I'm dropping out. So I'm just behind a little bit. That's not what I said, actually. It went a little bit different than that. That's funny. I'm just on Wigger Tom, dude. I mean, I say that to give myself a bit of a healthy defense because, listen, like, you are what you eat. And I've eaten plenty of, no, I'm just messing, but it is to say, like, listen, like, I came up different, okay? I didn't come up the prototypical kind of way. I was a rough kid growing up a little bit, you know. I get along with Donnie because, like, you know, I've had my face beaten in a few times and I did the same. I, you know, course corrected. There was an era in Columbus, you could go down the street, you know, I couldn't go into the nearby like 8 bars from campus. A whole different era, dude. And we turned away from that because Jesus, our Lord and Savior, looked down upon my sad soul and said, I'm going to need to help this brother. we got to send this dude a nuke of a sign. This guy ain't going to get it unless we nuke his ass. And that's what happened. Ended up working alongside a guy who was quite honestly maybe the loudest Christian on planet Earth. and that's a compliment. Don't take it as not, but it is a compliment. And it really shaped my life, man. You know, having him come into my life was massive. But to go up a little bit, I mean, engage with chat a bit more. Sorry if I'm leaving you guys hanging. Mussolini says, hey man, thanks for reading my comment. I would say that for the normies, we just cannot allow Christianity to be dumbed down into a binary like that. This is kind of like the Jews are either God's chosen. Trust me, I get that. And this is kind of when it goes into like having like the elders, right? Having the elders, having a bit more of a strenuous, you know, set of standards for who we allow to be like the teachers, who should actually be seen as a good teacher, who should even be given the title of a teacher, should be seen. Like, I get all of that. Trust me, I do. And I wish it wasn't like that, right? But it's unfortunate because almost everything is devolved and down to a binary. You think of just like the Middle East. It's like news to people to tell them like, hey, you don't have to pick Muslims or Jews. You can take your own side. You can say, hey, I'm a Christian. We don't want either. And people are like, they're like, that option was there the whole time. People are like, you are telling me now for the first time, I didn't have to pick either the turbans or the tiny hats. I could have picked Jesus. You're like, oh my gosh. You know, and I'm over here like, okay. But for some people, like, it's the way that information is delivered to them and the way that people are abused with information. The way that the average person, they go, well, I want to hear a conservative opinion. Surely not Sean Ryan, Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Tucker Carlson, so on and so on. Surely not every single one of them have an agenda. So when they hear these things, they're given the binary. They're given the binary from Shapiro. We must be pro-Israel at all costs, right? Because it's the Islam takeover. Or it's like the left wing, right? You go to the left wing and it's like we have to be pro-Palestinian, we have to be anti-Israel. And then it's like at a certain point somebody wakes up and they're like, holy crap, dude. Like that's the whole these people are in another country. This isn't even where I live. What do I have to do with any of this? This makes no sense. Funny. Just on Wigger time. Shit. But watch Jay's recent clip about Nick's idiotic take about the key of the papacy. That's the thing. I get it. I get it. People going back and forth on Peter's the key. The Orthodox disagree. I get it. Listen, that we would be here. I could stream every day about that. The Vatican versus the Orthodox versus the Protestants shouting from the outside trying to get in. We do that every day. My thing is, we just need more people to be Christian in general. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think we have some bigger fish to fry before worrying about the very specifics and the nuances here. I get it though. I get how for people, it's very important to them. And I understand that. I'm not saying it's not important by any means. But what I am saying is, I think right now, if I was to, and I think you would, when a house is burning down, not everything's equal. You're going to be grabbing your daughter, your children, your dogs before you're grabbing other stuff. So to me, that's the way I'm looking at it. America's burning down. What are we grabbing out of the house first? To me, that stuff is like, I get it, but let's hold on to it for a second, because that just encourages the brother wars. It encourages like the, what's the word? You know, just the infighting, the incessant infighting, if you will. You were in a Hindu cult for 12 years. I'm allowed to have my own identity. Kevin 11 says, is Ryan Dawson confirmed to be in the Epstein files? Yes, but it's kind of a joke. Like, he's not in the files, but he's mentioned in the files. I believe specifically, he's just in there largely because he's having a strong emotional reaction to, I believe, the death of Virginia Giuffre. But I'd have to double check if that was the exact person he was freaking out about. Text, if it's a risky, this is no, nothing else, no other. Hey, remember the meme we just brought up? He takes context, please. Vague posting, risky click. What are we like? What is the risk? Am I risking aura? Am I risking my channel? What am I risking with this click here? He takes him in here. He's vague posting, dude. He says roll the dice. Oh, okay. You're right. Let's do it. You're doing it. You did it. Everybody blame Tix. We're finding it out. Hold on. Let me find the link here.
Is your house infested with wiggers?
This is going to be golden. It's going to be golden. Well, listen, I am a wigger, so I'm allowed to say it. YouTube's not allowed to tell me my own identity. No, I know. This is great.
Is your house infested with wiggers? Do you wish your wigger could be cured? Well, now you can use my new de-wigger service, Wig Out. W-I-G-O-U-T.
I don't understand what it's like to be a young black man in the streets. Yo,
as soon as we get your call, we snap into action.
Yo, what are you doing, man? Yo, man, what? No, I ain't going.
What? No, what?
Get it off. Oh, man, I'm on road, man.
I'm not even that big. Think you walk around like this? We use state-of-the-art techniques to break the wigger down. We'll stop at nothing to deprogram your wigger.
God, make it stop. Oh, man, turn it off. I'm back and I'm proud. Oh, God. West Side. Oh, God.
It's worse than I thought.
Oh. If all else fails, Wig Out becomes every wigger's worst nightmare.
That's him! Number 3. The scariest black man I ever saw!
Okay, kid, you're going to jail.
Oh, wait. Oh, no, there's been some kind of mistake. Wait, it wasn't me. I'm not even black. Oh, my God. I'm not black. I'm white. Oh, Dad. Mom. I'm white. Oh, my God. I love you.
And when the wigger finally goes home, everybody wins.
Made it this
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, you get off our lawn right now, or I swear to God I will call the police. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. All right, I believe it's 3-2 me.
Another satisfied customer.
And there it is. Careful. Oh!
If you have a wigger problem, call us at. I'm gone.
Hey, it's me. That's good stuff, man. I am it's funny how auto played mine. I'm not that far yet. I haven't made it that far. I'm on like step 2 or 3. No, I'm just kidding. I'm on like step 7 of the Wigger recovery program. It's not wig out anymore. They said wig out was too harsh. You know, they had to pick it up with the times. They're being too oppressive. Some of the language was a bit offensive. They changed it up, and so now it's advanced. Now it's advanced white disempowerment. that's my recovery class. Oh, we have fun. I just it's making me angry that it keeps giving me this stupid TurboTax ad on Brave. Come on, man. I don't want that. Okay, back to putting our serious pants back on. Making a new tab so it gets rid of the TurboTax thing. We have another thing from Dominic Michael Trippi. And so the next thing we have here from Dominic Michael Trippi also still stays relevant in the realm of Netanyahu, Mossad, and Israel. Orthodox, she said, I need a link. Just scroll up in the chat. Tix is the one who posted it. It says a risky click is what it says. This is from Dominic Michael Trippi. He says, newly released Epstein documents reveal communications concerning the suspicious death of alleged intelligence asset Robert Maxwell, who Epstein stated was killed for threatening Mossad. Now, this one is very aggressive. So this is from Jeffrey Epstein. So this was sent in 2018, Thursday, March 15th. And it literally opens with, Robert Maxwell threatened Mossad. Quote, he told them that unless they gave him $400 million to save his crumbling empire, he would expose all he had done for them. In that time, he had free access to Margaret Thatcher's Downing Street, to Ronald Reagan's White House, to the Kremlin, and to the corridors of power throughout Europe. Maxwell passed on all the secrets he learned to Mossad in Tel Aviv. In turn, they tolerated his excesses, vanities, and insatiable appetite for a luxurious lifestyle and women. He told his controllers who they should target and how they should do it. He appointed himself as Israel's unofficial ambassador to the Soviet bloc. Now, this one is incredible. And that's this guy saying, he said, this is what's called a smoking gun. This, I think, maybe is probably about as close as you're ever going to get to one, to be quite real with you. And I do think there needs to be an extreme emphasis on open investigations into every open loose end that remains in what has been re-established. But again, the people you're calling for you're asking for the criminals to investigate themselves. So there does become an element of how much is this? Although it's not everybody. Sure, there are good actors inside of this that can do things. But my belief level on we getting any kind of, are we getting justice? Can't believe I said it that black. I am very unsure if we'll get anything at all, anything consequential. But yes. And so the next one that comes with this is also that, was it the threatening here? But this one is obviously egregious. This is aggressive. This is very out in the open here. Start the grinding teeth machine. Thank you for the super chat, brother, from Titan. Start the grinding teeth machine. Get angry, folks. Get mad. Now, this one's just insane. This one is, I think, one of the most substantive ones that came out of it, just because it is so kind of opaque and what is listed there, what it's saying. Now, the thing, however, here is that it's all in these quotations. And what I will say here is that it's not typical of some of the other formats we see from Jeffrey Epstein. However, it is from the same account. I'm curious if this would need to be explored in the chain of conversation of who was he communicating to and what was the purpose for. Because he may be quoting somebody else and not himself saying this, right? There could be other explanations to this. I'm just saying, to steel man this, and let's get all of our, eggs in an order or ducks in a row. Let's, have the bygones out of the way and then really push it if we're sure we can corroborate this. Because if that's the case, then it's over for ever. It's over for the current way of government. That's for sure. And then there's this other one here from Netanyahu. And this one is, again, in the same vein of Israel, Mossad, Netanyahu, blackmail, control. And what does this one say? New Epstein documents reveal that individuals involved in investigation believed Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were Mossad agents trying to blackmail leaders throughout the political world. So let's look at this one. It's from Mark Iverson, okay? The subject, Ghislaine Maxwell / Jeffrey Epstein. And so Mark Iverson is writing to follow up a report on 3 specific items. Now it's only listed as 2, but it's 3. He says, it was nice talking with you. I called to report the following 3 items. Number 1, forgive me. I'm losing my voice. I don't know why. Number 1, while going to meet political candidate Bill Richardson in Albuquerque at a hotel in the fall of 1982, I met Ghislaine. She was a bright, beautiful college girl who had graduated from Oxford University and a pilot. I was invited to see a ranch near Santa Fe, but I refused because I was both married and unable to afford the property. And that ranch near Santa Fe is Epstein. She pointed out her boyfriend, Jeffrey, coming into the room. I left. 1982 is roughly a decade before most people thought she was in the United States. So just to make a point of note here, this email was sent in 2021, so it is one of the more recent ones we're seeing. But it continues, within a week, I was warned that she was a spy and to stay away from her. Years later, I also heard that she is a submarine pilot. Another decade of abuse is possible. Number 2, a second black book that was found on the streets of New York is now reported on the internet. Exhibits STM, Undisputed Facts, Epstein'sBlackBook.com. It has Ghislaine's siblings in England, and of course, she is one of the daughters of Robert Maxwell, publisher. 2 of her sisters led a company for United States Department of Justice software. A back door to the software is suspected. Robert Maxwell was given a state funeral in Israel after his tragic death, very similar to Jonathan Pollard. I suspect Robert, Ghislaine, and Jeffrey were all Mossad agents trying to blackmail, trying to blackmail leaders in the political and financial world. At the end of the second black book, an organizational chart details his East 65th Street operation with potential co-conspirators in the physical location of the apartment for models. This chart may help your investigation and your case. And where is the chart? Out there. Now, some people have said they thought that they would have seen it, but it's all black. It's all redacted. The chart is basically anything that's relevant is blacked out. And that is the third item that's missing here, which is the chart to give a bit more of an explainer or a visualizer tool. But the names of these people, the being redacted that's all you need to know. That the Todd Blanche, Pam Bondi, life in prison, makeup charges, I don't even care. You will go to prison for the rest of your life because you put a black effing square on this piece of paper. Good. Good. That was the one thing we was asked not to do explicitly in the law, the federal law that was passed by Congress nearly unanimously, or rather very overwhelmingly. Life in prison. You are getting life in prison because you put a black box and you lied to the American people. You broke the law. You broke federal law. You broke and rejected the mandate of the people. Oh no, I was threatened. Don't care. Literally don't care. See ya. See you never. Lock him up, throw away the key. See you never. Oh, is that Pam Bondi crying? Yeah, she's been doing it for the last 10 years. Oh, don't care. Just literally do not care. They're more concerned about the cover-up than how this make them all look. That's scary. Yeah, true. Well, I think also, too, it's because I think there's an element of they still believe they can spin this no matter how bad and how disgusting and how depraved this stuff comes out. I think there's also a belief in them that they can, even if more insane things come out, they also have the AI element and the AI argument. It's fake. You can't trust it and don't believe in it. There's a lot of things and a lot of tools I believe that are still in their arsenal they'll be able to pull up and drop out, unfortunately. So one of the other posts, and we're getting some of the smaller themes here, but one of them specifically is about 4chan. And the one with 4chan is kind of very curious because, well, there's two. There's two with 4chan. So one is that the founder of 4chan had meetings with Epstein. And there's like this belief now that given the time that poll was brought back up on 4chan, and just the dates of when the meetings were happening with Epstein, now there's like this belief that 4chan was basically built and the alt-right was designed, and that everyone that came out of it is like a Fed, or that everything was like, it was like a all controlled environment from the beginning. That's like one theory. I'll lay that out there now, but I personally have not spent time digging into it. I will though, but just to point your attention to it, because I'm less familiar with 4chan. I never was on 4chan. I've only ever heard it told to me by other people who have been on it. So I'm the guy who's listening to war stories. I've never been on 4chan. Like, I've been occasionally because I've clicked on things to go to things from people that they've sent me, but I've never had an account on 4chan. The one though that I did look into that is about the 4chan is specifically pertaining to the 4chan post that was made the morning of Epstein's death, which was August 10th, 2019. And then August 10th, 2019, this 4chan post that was made details very specific happenings of what occurred with Epstein right before he supposedly had, unalived himself. So I'll bring up the post, and I'm sure you guys have seen it before because it has circulated many, many times before, and certainly many times prior to today. But it is this post in particular right here. And the post reads, "Not saying anything after this. Please do not try to dox me, but last night after the 4:15 count, they took him to medical in a wheelchair, front, cuffed, but not one triage nurse says they spoke to him." This is this anonymous user talking about Epstein. "Next thing we know, a trip van shows up. We do not do releases on the weekends unless a judge orders it. Next thing we know, he's put in a single man cell and he hangs himself. Here's the thing. The trip van did not sign in, and we did not record the plate number, and a guy in a green dress military outfit was in the back of the van, according to the tower guy who let him through the gate. You guys, I am shaking right now, but I think they switched him out." The him he's referring to being Jeffrey Epstein, the belief that Epstein is who was switched out here. And so what we get from this actually is that the 4chan poster has been identified, allegedly, as Roberto Grijalva. And what they have here is this is Grijalva, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, Roberto Grijalva. And what they have is some subpoena records that were not redacted, and the one that connects it is the one that comes from Citibank here. I believe this is the Citibank one. Could be wrong on the subpoena request. And so you can see this is the subpoena request right here. Records provided pursuant to a subpoena, all records made and kept. And right here you can find that this is the exact post that we just read here, relisted back on this report. And then you will find right here, Roberta Grijalva. And so for a long time, it was even contested if that was even real. And so now we know it is real, at least so far, allegedly, as the Epstein files would have you believe it. And this might be the most viral post I've seen in the last 2 days pertaining to anything Epstein. But there was a period in time in which many people had argued and contended like that's just completely made up. The biggest thing against it, though, however, was the fact that it literally happened prior to the death. And when looking back in hindsight, you're like, okay, this is kind of eerie. That was the thing that always stuck out to me, was the timing of the post before the public had been aware of what had occurred. And I think now we know. I would say this now leans in the direction that it is much more truthful than not. Now this opens up a huge other can of worms, because now this reopens back to like the full-blown schizo, like Epstein's still alive somewhere. He went down a tube in Tel Aviv, and now he's like eating, caviar with the Teletubbies on the last Greek island left. Like, I don't know what happened to him, or really if he's dead or not, regardless. But this is another piece of the pie, another piece of evidence. And I would be curious to hear from Grijalva himself, speaking himself, his experience and what he saw there. And I think that, if anything, he's one of the first people that needs to be brought into an investigation. Like, now he's an identity of somebody who was witness to supposedly these events that occurred. And if they happened the way it happened, he would be able to give identities to other individuals. Like, who was the tower guard that he talked to, right? What was the time, camera footage, etc. And I'm sure many of that's probably been discarded and destroyed now, but it'd be a start. Is he still alive? I'm unsure. Because it was in 2019, I would imagine, I would lean towards yes, but given the fact that he's involved with this, he's probably on, they probably found him with 2 shotgun blasts to the back and they wrote it a suicide. Who knows? Who knows? Man. So then we covered the bit of Palantir. The Palantir one was just kind of a, I think the Palantir one, what I wanted to drive home with that one is understand like what Jeffrey Epstein did for Ehud Barak. He probably did hundreds of times with many other individuals who are leaving government positions or were maybe lost their election and needing to go back into the financial or private sector for a little bit, finding these different networks and boards and places they can go and install themselves into to the tunes of a couple $1 million, if not a lot more, depending on who they are and where they are. There's a few other things on the aggregate that I think are ultimately not nearly as important. One that I think is important though, that is actually kind of very curious, I'll put it up on screen. This one comes from the transgenderism aspect. Like, there's a bunch of this stuff that goes to Pizzagate, but that stuff is like, it makes me angry how disturbing it is, but just know. Now, I will say too, for anybody who wants to go to this, the aggregate document is in the Discord. I've posted it like 3 times. It updates. Anybody with the link can view it. And you should be able to click on all the links that are in there as well too. I have that available for people. Everything I've gone through here today is available on this document here. So, but the Pizzagate stuff is there. I do have four circulated posts there from the Pizzagate stuff. But getting to, maybe before we do the transgenderism stuff, we'll go back to Steve Bannon, Epstein, and Trump. Because Steve Bannon in particular almost could have his own chapter in the Epstein files with how much has been related to him that's come out in this latest batch. And so the first one I think I'll go to is messages between Bannon and Epstein, talking about former the Trump first term Trump advisor Madeleine Westerhout. And so this is from Rerum Novarum, which is that what we have. And that is messages between Epstein and Steve Bannon revealed that former Trump 1 advisor Madeleine Westerhout and Trump were sexually involved. It goes on to say that notably Westerhout resigned after revealing to a reporter that Trump liked her better than his daughters and didn't like to be photographed with Tiffany Trump because she looked overweight. Now, I don't remember this chick at all, to be quite honest with you, but that's kind of a wild thing to say. That Trump likes her better than his own daughters, that's a crazy thing to say. She was feeling it. She felt like she was on top of the world, didn't she? Women, dude, they can't keep their mouth shut, can they? You had the whole world, but you just couldn't stop. There's Steve Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein here. Epstein's asking Bannon, do you know Marion, Donald's new friend? Madeleine Westerhout, very funny. Bannon says, she is the receptionist. Good kid, Grandune. Came from RNC. Epstein says, knee pads, doing God's work. Steve Bannon says the element. And it's funny. That's this part that's crazy. Epstein says, he's much more calm, but the sight of him in the residence in his undies is hard to fathom. I'll give you details when I see you. The 2 things he dreads at the moment is that an email from his ex saying he has a small dick and his transcript. Bannon says the staying away from families over holidays, huge tell. That's from Madeleine. Bannon says, whoa, wake up, dude. Quote, she has a way about her. Must be referencing something that Trump said. Saving the world, in my view. Steve said, then we really need an intervention. That's crazy. So it sounds like Trump was going crazy with this Madeleine chick in the first administration, first term. Point of view, knee pads. What a crazy photo. John Levant, why is everyone in the White House a freak? It's the way of the world. Just the way it is, apparently. Power is too much for these people to handle. Now, more from Steve Bannon is him being a good goy. And this part is the stuff that was really, this was grinding my teeth. This is Epstein saying to Bannon, you're an honorary Jew anyway. Now it's no longer Judeo-Christian, just Judeo. Steve Bannon says, honored. I would drop the Christian and Christian Zionist. I never again should anyone here take anything Steve Bannon says seriously. That's a hard line. That's a hard line moving forward. This next one is 10 days. This one's a little bit more crazy. 10 days before Epstein was allegedly found dead in a cell, he created a, quote, list for Steve Bannon and emailed it to himself. And this is the list of what it says here. Mandelson, Barnaby, Summers, Watson, Askelbotstein, Karam Tajay, Pritzker, Edelman, Seth Lloyd, Martin, Novak, Minsky, Tata, Suskan, Torminger, Rouse, Hopkins, Randall, Kostlin, Gardner, Gates, Teal, Hoffman, Hoy, Sinofsky, Sheldrake, Sulzberger, Jess, Staley, Joshua, Bach, Joy, Edio, HBJ, Berg, Myro, Anas Rafat, Sultan, Nathan Fagenbaum, Ramastron, Goldberg, Damasio, Shristakis, Brockman Hillis, Kaufman, Seligman, Gold, Sachs, John Kerry, George Mitchell, Mandelbrot, Chomsky, Barak, Zagat, Nathan, Brian Green, Yao, E.O. Wilson, Prince Andrews, Jaglin, Clinton, Pastrana, Richardson, Leahy, Jarecki, Schumer, Janeri, Rahid, Mongolia. Like, Mongolia's a country. Gambit Ehud, Jakku Lang Woody, Churkin, Sergey, Rummler, Weingarten, Amani, Rothschild, Dirch, Ken Stark, Karp, Dubai Castro, Popley Queen, Prez King, PM, Mandelson Bilar, Meti, Mendelfert, Gergen, Melusine, Margarita Ovitsk, Barak, Mabuto, Khashoggi, Rockefeller. So is that the list? Is this the list? Is there actually a list? Is this actually the list? And then it says more cryptic misspelled list of big names and topics attached to bottom of Alex file. That's crazy. 2006, Jeffrey Epstein sent that. That's in 2006. When's this from? Crazy how very similar the writing style of the email is from like 13 years apart. That one's from a long ago to I don't know who, Kellen S. or Kellens. This is him writing an email to himself. I would imagine he did all of this on the phone during his like free time there in prison. Just kind of crazy, to be honest with you. Nato's friend says, I love Mongolia, and they're among individuals. The whole country is on the take. Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah, the whole nation of Mongolia is actually on the Epstein files. Like, dang, we didn't know it was going to go that far reaching. And there was one of these other, text exchanges between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. Or not Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. It was between Steve Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein. And it was about Jerry Nadler, in which Epstein says, Jerry Nadler really gearing up. Amazing how much he hates Trump. I'm told that 20 years ago, Trump called him a little fat Jew. He never forgot. It'll be pinata time. Bannon says, Trump's problem is that he seems to trigger the tough Jews. Nadler, Wiseman, Schiff, who are now killers with leverage. Crazy. It sounds like there used to be a period in which Trump was like based or something. And like I said, I'll say it again. This big document I'm looking at and been pulling from, you can find in the Discord. I'll put it on screen so you can see it. What I'm looking at, or at least this. This is the document I'm looking through. All the links here with posts. This is the separate 2-hour interview. Notes on that, links as well, timestamps. Anybody who wants to know and get a more kind of summarized idea and the links to what we were talking about, you can find that there. In the Discord, we like 3 links to it. Maybe a couple more than 3. But it is there, I promise. And I think we'll just recenter, go back to the timeline, because it kind of catches us up largely on where I'm at on the Epstein files. Or at least what's been aggregated so far. It's a lot. We're still kind of in the period of reeling from what all is there. I think I'm kind of expecting at some point one of these items is going to take a little bit of a life on its own, and one of the things like I didn't even mention that came out like in the first wave was like the Bill Gates element, get STDs, asking for antibiotics from Epstein. And so it was very clear and obvious that Epstein's network of who was willing to be extremely personable with him and kind of be a bit more, less of their public persona and more of a private persona was very revealing, and it's extremely widespread and rampant. But at the same time, I do agree with what I put up forward from Nick from earlier. which is we need to not lose sight of what the actual main purpose of what the Epstein files or what this operation was meant to do. And that operation was meant to compromise very powerful and prominent American figures to subvert America's own interests at the behest of Israel, to help position and promote the nation state of Israel at the cost of American lives, at the cost of years of American experiences, and things being warped and manipulated based on these kind of secular left-wing Jewish ideals being prominent in the White House for an extended period of time. And I think most people can kind of see our social scape and landscape has been largely changed by that. I think most people now, white, black, Asian, majority of us kind of, we all understand there's one group of people left. Like the whole roster's exposed, but there's one group of people that remains that the system will convulse if you start criticizing a little bit too unkindly. The cat's out of the bag. The Jewish supremacy element, we need to drive that home and hard. That is the most workable element. It is like the most undeniable element of what's in the Epstein files. It's like, it's just in there. The evidence is right in their words, the way they say it, what they're talking about in the conversations. That should be what needs to be blown wide open. This whole, and it needs to be compared and contrasted with how all the Jews just behaved over the Heil Hitler song that was played in Miami. It means nothing to us. We see what, we see what you talk about in your private emails, right? Like, save it. And this kind of idea that that it's holier than thou, it never goes the other way, right? You don't see Jews do that. Really. And I think it needs to be explored very specifically. This race realism element, break it all the way open. Everybody is allowed to be criticized, or we just push you all out and we just live in a general like white society, right? And then we don't have to worry about it. Obviously not pragmatic, but the point stands. It's like we're done living in this 2-tier system or 3-tier, 4-tier. It's complex depending on who you are. But where whites are continually, white Christians specifically, are shed upon, really just spit upon and largely subverted, made fun of, criticized, hunted down, trying to be replaced actively, miscegenation being forced and being put in like in almost every element of media in Hollywood. No more of that, actually. No more of that. And we know who's doing it, and you're not going to be doing it anymore. And we get that you hate Jesus Christ. We get that you hate God. But if you want to believe in that stuff, go to Israel. And we need to very specifically be in a position of like the Jewish supremacy has got to be outlined, emboldened, and rejected. Understood and acknowledged for all the ways and the forms that it's find itself and the way that it's applied. And it needs to be and backtracked with all the ways that people lied. Starting with probably Ben Shapiro. And I think these things need to be explored extraneously. Like, do not let Ben Shapiro hear the end of it. If you see Ben Shapiro speak, you remind him that he said the Epstein files were fake. You remind him that he has pushed and been party to the same elements that Netanyahu has been screaming about and Epstein has been helping set up. And he probably thinks just the same way. Newman says, even if the normies are now realizing all of this, they don't know and have a relationship with Christ, nothing will change. It will remain the same for them. And that is true. And let that be said as well, too. And I'm sure there's probably some of you still in the audience or who might watch me and are not Christians, or maybe you don't feel like you're Christians. And I would agree with Become Nuna that ultimately all of it is meaningless if you are not attached to the truth, that is Jesus Christ. And I think very specifically, and I'm saying this because I feel like I've seen a lot of comments lately that talk about the whole, I agree with you on a lot, but I just can't get down with the Christian nationalism. It's like, I'm sorry, but that is like my most explicit element. Like, I am a Christian nationalist. No, I'm like a Christian supremacist at this point. I matched my makers, if you will. But for me, I do agree with that. There's elements, and this is why, seek first the kingdom of God. As I try to say this at the end of every stream, it's the most important element. It has to be the number one priority. Your moral compass must come from what is objectively good, what is objectively the truth, what is objectively laid out as it is in Scripture, what is the natural order of God, what is to be, versus what is not to be. And you have to actively choose that. You have to actively choose that. It is a daily choice. Sometimes it's an hourly choice. And for some people it's harder than others, and for some people it's not. But I'll spend some time on this because I got humbled by Matthew McConaughey, like a 20-second clip from Matthew McConaughey the other day. Now I don't know too much about Matthew McConaughey's belief in Scripture, but the lesson stuck. And I believe it came across my timeline the way that it did because it was meant for me. And it was very specific about how he could not sit there and tell himself that he was forgiven or even bring himself to ask Jesus to forgive him when he knew he was going to continually keep making and pursuing the same sins the moment he left that church on Sunday. And that's when he was making the point. You have to choose it. You have to choose not to sin. Then it switched over to another guy who was like, stitching it together. The guy makes the point. And it's a great point. A lot of people will point to Satan and the devil and be like, hey, the reason why I sinned and fell into sin is because Satan made me. Satan tempted me, Satan pushed me. That's like a very poor way to look at it. Because Satan, as in the words of Joel Webbins, Satan is not omnipotent. He is not like God. He is not everywhere. He is one of the archangels who fell and would have rather ruled in hell than when serving the Lord in heaven as number 2. And it's from this understanding that you need to accept and be accountable that no, you are the one who is choosing sin. You are choosing not to obey the commandments of God. And Jesus says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. I won't get too deep into the theology, but just some of the points to be said there. And there is always a choice. Amen to that. There is always a choice. I think we kind of went full circle on this. And I'm also like losing my voice too. 3 hours. Is that good enough? 3 hours is good enough? I thought it'd be a bit more casual than that, but I literally dog, I can't be casual, bro. I'm like, I have to be organized. I don't know what it is about me that just can't not be casual. I don't know. It just has to be. But okay. We got some work done. I got the points out there. Wanted to cover what I had seen so far, give you guys my takes. I'm sure a lot of you were curious where I was at with my head on this. Speaking of tomorrow, like I'd been mentioned, because I'm picking up more part-time work, I'm going back in with where I'm at with AI, some of the database training programs. Lord have mercy. Marathon stream, man, Dodo Mog. That's funny. But because of that, I'm just going to have less time overall to be able to do stuff. And so that's why I wanted to do longer streams to make up for the fact that I might be just doing less streams in general. It won't be by too much, but I do have to start setting some days aside to work on that too. Largely because I want my wife to not have to work anymore. And because I'm really tired of her. I just need to make a bit more money. No, I'm kidding, dude. I own this house. I just wanted to not have to work anymore. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of where my mindset is at. And you guys' support means everything, and I wouldn't even be here without that, anyways. So without that, Christ is King. Seek first the kingdom of God. You can support me at buymeacoffee.com/AtlasThug. That link is in the description below. For a lot of you, I know you don't like supporting YouTube or Google and all that. I get that. You can support me there. It's a separate portal. I appreciate it greatly. I appreciate everybody for being here. Because it'd be pointless to talk to myself. But with that, as always, Christ is King. Deport Cash Patel, deport Pam Bondi. And I might come back and stream for Shortly Very Casual later tonight. We'll see. Just got a lot of things going on, and we'll try to work on some new stuff too. But with that, if I do, I'll tag everybody in the Discord, and you'll see me then. But everybody have a good rest of your day. And hopefully we will get some answers, some consequences, and something meaningful at the end of all of this. And with that, I'll see you guys next time. Take care.
Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it! You say Christ is Lord! Get out! Get out! Christ